X in my name is not just a symbol or a target sign. A spell that attracts all who spit facts online all the time.
Can you see it? All the ones who drag my name every single day. Can you see it? Can you see it? Can you see it? They keep saying you don't have what it takes to carve out your own name underneath the shadows of gods. And I keep waiting for the day disbelievers say I flew way too close to the sun. I wait, but it never really comes. The X in my name is not just a symbol or a target sign. A spell that attracts all who speak facts online all the time. The X in my name is not just a symbol or a target sign. A force that compels all to rebel from all right shackled minds. Why do they just stand there against when they fall from the battles I have overcome? You feel it, feel the cold and the seething tone that they make while I stand up, man among gods. And I keep vaping with my mills, shooting ropes in my cold that faces towards the sun. They hate, but I'm sitting comfy with their mom. The X in my name is not just a symbol or a target sign. A spell that attracts all who speak facts online all the time. The X in my name is not just a symbol or a target sign. A force that compels all to rebel from all that shackled mind. The X in my name is not just a symbol or a target sign. A spell that attracts all who speak facts online all the time. The X in my name is not just a symbol or a target sign. A force that compels all to rebel from all right shackled minds. It's you and me, your mom, it's me. I'll take another hit from my name. You've seen now, watch me not now, punch your face now. Let me show you how.
Good afternoon, everybody. It is so good to see all of you. Hey there, Cleaver120, Dan Share, what's up? Zoomy Dog, good to see you. Bluestone, how are you? Odd Thomas C1, what's up? System 16, good to see you. Shoten LLC, what's up? Transgender Gal, good to see you. Little Morphine Annie, what's up? Dead Heathen, good to see ya. I'm having a pretty good day today. Little tired though. I stayed up pretty late on FF14, I'm not gonna lie. I literally spent 4 hours setting up all my crafting macros for FF14. But now, I can very easily craft all the basic components you make with every profession in FF14 with just a click of a button. It crafts it for me at perfect quality. It's pretty awesome. I'm not risking a car crash for stream. Oh yeah, don't be in danger. I'm glad you're just a passenger. It's good to know. Go down a monster, my guy. I already had a monster today, and I only drink 1 monster per day. Like, I've never had any kidney problems or bladder issues, but my mom notoriously did, like, as a teenager. And so I've always been pretty on top of, like, what I consume in terms of drinks. The only soda, like, I never drank soda. The only soda that I drink, and if you call it soda, is Monster. And I drink it pretty much like you would coffee, and I actually do intend to move away from Monster towards coffee, because apparently coffee is healthier for you than Monster. But yeah, I've just always tried to drink a good amount of water, and I never drank a lot of soda. It's called Pop. I am from Florida. We call it soda. Yeah, I mean, you could use them interchangeably, but I've always been a soda guy. Soft drink? Yeah, okay. European. Australia is pretty much Europe. My friend used to drink like 3 Rockstars a day and got heart issues. Yeah, like, if I feel the slightest, like, tightness in my chest, I will literally not drink a Monster for 2 days because I'll get so paranoid about it. I'm probably totally fine, but I do drink a lot of Monster just by the fact that I order 3 cases of Monster at a time. I stock up for like 2 weeks worth, 3 weeks worth, and then I put like 8 in the fridge to get them cold, and then I have one every morning. And sometimes, if I've been a good boy, I let myself have one at night if I really need to pull an all-nighter on something. Like if I'm playing a game with my friends and it's like, oh, I'm struggling now, I'll go grab a Monster to help me pull the all-nighter. The sugar-free ones, right? No, here's one of my empty cans. This one. The classic. I just finished that one. So yeah. I'm just a classic green Monster guy. Yeah, the sugar-free stuff is garbage. That's the blue one, right? I really don't like that one. I don't know where I get this from. I should say I don't know where I get it from. And Shoei says, and I always say soda instead of pronouncing it. Yeah, my grandma kind of pronounced things weird like that. She said Sunday, which is really weird. She would pronounce Sunday, Sunday. And there were a bunch of other examples like that. Never really put much thought into it, but it was definitely noticeable. I've heard old people say Wednesday. She definitely would say Wednesday. Like, let me see if I can imitate how she'd say it. Her voice was a little vocal fried, so I can't imitate that. But she'd basically be like, "Hey Alex, are you coming over next Sunday?" That's basically how she'd say it. I have to go to the dispensary today, chat. I am running dangerously low on marijuanas. I gotta go to the dispensary after stream, or it's gonna be all Jover. Nice, I just got a message from Dylan. I'm letting him know just a minute, because I wanna get like stream, all situated and everything. All right. Let me bring up. Live view a map. Okay. All right. Really fast. Beta Leafy, thank you for the $5 donation. I really appreciate that. Very kind of you. Said my boyfriend's uncle died. I'm really sorry to hear that. and left him a house. That's actually pretty nice, though. We don't know how to react since their uncle died, but also gave us a house pretty much. So, very sad that their uncle died, but also one of their uncle's, like, dying acts was to basically solidify a pretty significant amount of financial stability for the foreseeable future. Like, getting a house, like, I assume mortgage paid off and everything, like, there'd be some things that would still have to be paid. Property tax is a big one, but, like, for the most part, like, it's very, very significant to just be able to inherit a house like that, and now you have a house. That's serious, and especially to not have to spend money on it, like, to buy a house properly. That's a pretty big deal. And if the mortgage is paid off, that's an even bigger deal. Yeah, owning a house is one of the biggest, like, practical guarantees of long-term future stability you can have. Renting, very unstable. Your living situation as a renter could literally go to shit and just stop being a thing any day. It's scary, right? But if you own a house, like, that's your house. There are some things that can happen that can make you lose it, but as long as you're somewhat responsible, like, shelter is covered. That's pretty significant. The biggest bill most people have to pay every month is whatever type of bill they have to pay for living, whether it be a mortgage, rent, anything like that. Man, imagine owning things in this economy. Yeah. But yeah, Beta Leafy, I hope that helps to sort of add a little bit of a silver lining to the situation, because that is a very, very big boost to just your general, like, score in life. There's really no other way to put it. You're doing well, and that was a very kind thing of your boyfriend's uncle to do. Well, thank you for the $5 as well. I really appreciate it. I keep dropping into dead zones because Highway 400 is notoriously bad when it comes to cellular. I'm sorry to hear that, Njord. All right, so with that said, though, I appreciate everybody coming out today. You guys are awesome. Obviously, I'm not wrapping up a stream. It kind of sounds like I was. I just want to say, if you want to support the stream, consider dropping a like, subscribing, ringing the bell icon. You can even donate, subscribe, or gift a sub on my website to somebody else to help purge them or yourself from the whiteness. No matter what you do, though, to support me, I really do appreciate it, and it means a whole lot. All right, so let me call up Dylan. All right. Call when you're ready. There we go. I'll hit the record button, too, so it's, all memed up. Yeah, there we go. This will be interesting. I'm excited. Dylan Burns has actually been on the ground in Ukraine, covering the war, like, where it's happening. Like, not like from a really long distance away and he's, like, technically in Ukraine, but not where anything... No, he was there, like, where shit was going down. And he almost died. He straight up almost died. He almost got war crime by Russia. Oh, he's calling. Hey, Dylan, can you hear me?
Hi, how's it going?
Pretty good, dude. How about you?
I'm doing okay. I'm just, just reading these developments just going live. There's more updates coming in constantly, so I'm trying to do my best to keep track.
That's got to be overwhelming as hell. Like, I was just talking to my chat about how you almost died in Ukraine. I don't want to get to that point too quickly because I feel like there's a lot you want to talk up leading up to that. But we're lucky to have you here right now, and I'm just glad to say that you're okay.
Thank you. I like not being dead. It's nice.
Yeah. That video that you showed on stream, I stuck around very briefly to watch your going over the Twitter videos you posted, and that experience is horrifying. That experience seems horrifying, and I'm glad you're okay, man.
Yeah, I mean, this one was a little different than the other experiences I had because the first experience I had that was somewhat like that, it was on the front line. We had a vague idea we were being targeted, but no explosions happened close to us because we were just being chased by a Russian drone. And it was a spotter drone, but they never actually got to shelling us. Or they did shell, but they shelled the area we left. So we were in danger, but we thought maybe a suicide drone, but it was a very different type of danger because it was kind of just in the general purview. It wasn't on you. You're not hearing it. You're not being attacked. You have the fear of being attacked. Where the second time I had an experience like this, it was in Mykolaiv, where they were just shelling the entirety of the city. So you had you knew you could get hurt, but you also didn't feel like you were being targeted. Whereas in this experience, I knew I was being targeted. We knew we were being targeted by the Russian military, and it was very, very clear. I first found it out because I heard the whistle I found out we were being shelled because I heard the whistle. I heard it coming close because I could hear that very distinct kind of whistling sound of an incoming artillery shell, mortar shell. And you can only hear it when it's right above your head. And so when I heard that, that's when I knew it was happening and I got down. I'm rambling about it, but I don't know what to say about it because, I don't know
No,
how to talk about it with
absolutely.
people.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's obviously. I feel like it's one of those things where it's God. I wish that hadn't happened because, that was close. But at the same time, I feel as though I would feel somewhat vindicated. I know you've been dealing with people who've been carrying water for Russia and the war crimes they're committing for a while now, and to be able to witness firsthand and catch on video, and be able to say, no, I've seen it. Not necessarily cathartic, but reassuring that you're advocating for the right side of things.
Um, I don't know if it was very like much reassuring, and I don't know if I had much vindication because you don't need to be here long to get an idea of the type of like terror campaigns or like war crimes that are going on on a very constant basis. The only thing that was particularly special about the war crime that we recently documented in Kherson was that we got everything on camera. We got the aid workers loading up the boat. And for those of you who don't know, I was in Kherson recently. I got back, I think 2 weeks ago now. I'm preparing to head out again, maybe in a week, go somewhere else to film. But 2 weeks ago, I got back from Kherson, and I was in Kherson because I was going to be filming with animal rescue crews who were, saving animals that have been stranded by the flooding. A lot of families had to leave their pets behind, and that's not always the first consideration when, the flooding starts. And since most of the human evacuations had already been done, they were trying to see if there's any animals that could be helped. And so we went out onto the water with a boat that ended up not even working. It started to break down, but as we were about to go back to pick up the boat with the German aid workers that I was filming with, we then got shelled by the Russian military. It was actually a private military company connected to the 205th. It was a private military company headed by the head of the Russian occupation authority in Crimea. They posted video of it afterwards, bragging about it, saying that we were like Ukrainian special forces operators that were going to create a bridgehead on the other side of the Dnieper River in order to, spearhead the Ukrainian counteroffensive and, attack them. But there's no footage that shows any like soldiers or any military personnel that they've posted. They have yet to show any evidence of that. And all they ended up accomplishing was injuring a friend of mine by the name of John Jones, who had a piece of shrapnel enter his upper thigh and his lower abdomen. The only reason he probably wasn't killed was because his pelvis ended up deflecting the shrapnel. He's an elderly man, an elderly British expat, so he's very, very lucky to be alive. And he also didn't wear his body armor, and so he's even more lucky to be alive. He should have been wearing his body armor.
That is horrific. And the audacity, too. The audacity to say, oh, yeah, these press were, they were Ukrainian special forces trying to, like, smooth it over and push the lies already. The amount of dishonesty, the provable, witnessable, like, dishonesty on the side of those carrying water for Russia is pretty infuriating. Particularly, I assume you've got a lot more examples than I could come to mind with. But there was the Bucha massacre, where satellite camera footage was able to show that after the Russians came through that area, there's just bodies lining the street who had been clearly handcuffed and executed, or zip tied behind their back and executed point blank and there was also a ton of other horrible shit, I think, that was reported, a lot of young women reported being sexually assaulted by Russian soldiers. Just the most horrific stuff. And then Russian media outlets come back with, no, that was Ukraine, false flag. It's like the audacity.
I've talked to people who were involved in some of the first I interviewed people who were involved in some of the first clearing of that area of Bucha and the surrounding suburbs. Bucha is just the name of one suburb. There was multiple suburbs that had to deal with this type of Russian operation, full of extrajudicial killings, rounding people up, people associated with the government, people of any vaguely Ukrainian nationalist imagery, just military-age men a lot of times as well. People could just be just in the wrong place at the wrong time, riding your bike. There was footage of people riding their bike being shot in the back as they're just riding it through the street. They uncovered a lot of war crimes, and it really heavily affected a lot of the people who saw it on the ground. I mean, it was already extremely emotional, just seeing it on camera. It was extremely horrific, the type of stuff that was uncovered. But that's just one area that it happened in. It also happened in Irpin. It also happened in a lot of the area in the Ukrainian countryside. It was part of the reason why the Territorial Defense Forces, which were a lot of locals and basically the Ukrainian version of the National Guard, but it's a little bit more ragtag. The reason they fought so hard was because the story started to come out. Even though Bucha and Izium and these areas were actually where people went to hide from the Russians, because they expected the fighting to be in the city center of Kiev, not in the suburbs surrounding it. So that's also the thing that was so horrific about Bucha, is it was supposed to be a safe haven, but it wasn't. People judged very, very wrongly about how far the Russians were going to get, and they kind of took out their frustrations on their military failures on the local civilian population. I interviewed some people who were in Bucha during the occupation. All the stories are terrible. A lot of the stuff that witnesses saw, and this is always true with war crimes, isn't going to be officially filed because there's not overwhelming evidence. Not everybody has a phone in their hand when a war crime happens. Not everybody has multiple witnesses or lawyers on present to document everything that happens perfectly. And definitely when you're talking about a lot of these older babushkas who don't, have a camera phone, maybe they have a flip phone if they have a phone. You just get a lot of testimony, which I wanted to record. I wanted to see if I could get some testimony of what the locals had seen, even if the evidence isn't super overwhelming. Because the truth of the matter is, most of the war crimes that are happening in Ukraine are not being documented. There's just not even though it's getting more documented than usual when these types of atrocities happen, because we're in the 21st century, we're in the age of the internet, everybody has a camera in their pocket. Most of them I still don't believe are being documented.
That's the scary thing, is that every other day it feels like the headlines have another horrible massacre that's been committed by Russian soldiers or some private military contracting group that's working with Russia, that they've done some horrific war crime. Or, there's evidence, right? We know they did it, but they can't outright report that. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. So much of it never is going to be heard of by the mainstream media, by the vast majority of people outside of Ukraine. Even in certain areas of Ukraine, the story might not get out because a lot of communication, I imagine, has been cut for a variety of reasons. But gosh, I'm impressed that you're going back. I'm impressed, and I have a lot of respect that you're going back, especially after that near-death experience. Mad respect.
Well, I'm not going back to Kherson specifically. I'm going to be going to a different part of the country to film with artillery crews, who are very they are very busy right now. The artillery crews. This is most certainly has been a war of artillery. Artillery has been one of the heavy deciding factors in this war, and so I wanted to see what their daily lives are like, what they actually have to deal with on the daily, because a lot of the way it's presented in government footage and it's talked about online, I don't necessarily believe it might be 100% accurate. So I want to see what it's, really like from a human perspective. So I'm going to go try to interview them on the ground, talk about their daily experiences, their difficulties, stuff like that.
Yeah, I've got a million questions, and I imagine there's a million things you want to talk about because especially the last week, news has been heavy. A lot of breakneck news coming out of Russia and Ukraine.
I know.
Um, yeah.
Honestly, it's like it's hard to stream this week. I took a breather yesterday. I had to work on some other stuff. I have so many projects in the works. I got so many just stuff just sitting on the back burner. Not only am I busy with it, but I'm just like tired. There's just so much to talk about. There's so many developing stories, which I guess is, on one hand it's good for me, but god damn, I feel like I'm being whipped.
It's emotionally exhausting, like people think, oh, a lot of stuff is happening, a lot of bad stuff's happening. That's good for the people who cover it financially, but it's also just grim. It's not fun that this is happening. It's just kind of, it's not kind of, it's just overtly sad and infuriating. I feel like a good place to start with, though, because I imagine some people might be a little bit behind. I don't know how many people keep up with all the details of what's been happening. But do you want to summarize like the beginning of the war, just the important points, like whatever you think is the most important to bring up, and the more recent events with like what you've seen and done in Ukraine and the Wagner Coup stuff? I think that would be a good order to do it. But it's up to you.
Sure. There's when you talk about the beginning of the war, it's a little complicated. So I'll just summarize it to the best of my ability. In 2014, there was a Ukrainian president who was by the name of Yanukovych, who tried to pull out of a trade association agreement with the European Union, which was very, 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 very unpopular. So people then protested against this because he said on the campaign trail he was going to do it. And there was good reason to believe that he had been pressured by the Russian government very severely, possibly also using economic coercion in order to try to make him cave and instead try to enter their economic agreements instead of entering the ones with the European Union, which the majority of the people supported. He had campaigned on and would allow things like visa-free travel that would be very beneficial for Ukrainians. So this was done in the middle of the night. And even though it was done in the middle of the night, most likely to stunt a reaction from the public, people went onto the street to protest against it. There was then a brutal crackdown. The people responded very negatively to that, and then Yanukovych fled. After Yanukovych fled, the government in Russia then decided that they were going to invade Crimea, take advantage of the chaos and political uncertainty, which maybe could progress in a way that's unfriendly to their quote-unquote strategic interests. They invade Crimea. They then also funnel weapons and money and also like Russian soldiers into the Donbass. Contractors like in the Wagner group, which a lot of people talk about the Wagner group kind of starting and cutting its teeth in this early time period. And in the last 8 years, that has largely been a frozen conflict. The funding of the separatism and the invasion of Crimea. But in 2022, the Russians got a bunch of soldiers on the border, said they weren't going to invade. Before then, they finally invaded again in order to overthrow the Ukrainian government and secure their economic interests, their strategic interests. These are going to be all the reasons. Like there's man, it's such a. Why did the war start? I think it started in part because they wanted access to the bases in Crimea. I think it's partially because they wanted access to Ukrainian resources, but I also think that it's because of the ultranationalism of the Russian regime, which views Ukraine as kind of like a pseudo nation, not a real nation state. The Ukrainian identity is a kind of weird mutation of the Russian identity. It's an offshoot of the Russian identity. They're little Russians, and it was an artificial state created by Lenin. And if it does not exist as a friendly entity in relation to Russia that serves Russian interests, then the Russians have the right to take away that sovereignty. They have a right to take away the identity. The Russians will also bring up other reasons for the war starting, like NATO expansion. While it is debatable that it played a role, I don't think it was a very large role due to the fact that NATO was not going to be expanding into Ukraine in 2022, 2023, or 2024, or any time in the near future. The Russians had already stopped that. So there had to be other motivating factors, in my view. As for what is happening recently, after the Russians invaded, they kind of face planted. They said, oops, dropped my invasion everywhere, all disaster. What am I going to do? And Wagner's answer to this, the private military company, which was usually known for its mercenary work across Africa, where it would, defend many brutal regimes across the region in return for getting resource rights. For example, if it took back a oil and gas facility in Syria, it would get 25% of the oil and gas facility profits from that facility. And in the Central African Republic, it has ownership through a bunch of shell companies, of course. I think the one in the Central African Republic would be Concord. They also get paid in a lot of mining rights and access to like gold and, rich minerals that they can profit off of. And it cut its teeth in Africa. It's cut its teeth in Syria, defending the Assad regime. And in Ukraine, it got bloated. It got a lot of, prisoners, and it got more powerful. But after it got so powerful, other people in Russia's government, notably Sergei Shoigu, the Russian defense minister, and Gerasimov, who is the head of the Russian general staff, the military general staff, they're not very happy with it. They're part of the Silovikian old security guard, it's not security state, but part of the Russian establishment, the security establishment, and they didn't like how powerful and independent Wagner, this private military company, was becoming. And so they cut off prison recruitment. Wagner leader Yevgeny Prigozhin, who used to be a caterer for Vladimir Putin, he's the person who heads the Wagner group. He also used to be a street thug, and he served time in prison for it, and a hot dog salesman. So he's had a very diverse life. He was trying to fight back against Wagner, his group being boxed in on, but every single time he got boxed in more and more. There wasn't really much he could do in response. He released a lot of messaging against Shoigu and Gerasimov. Most Russians think Shoigu and Gerasimov did mess up the war, that they haven't actually been managing it quite well. So he capitalized on that. But all of that was still not enough to avoid what Putin eventually allowed Shoigu and Gerasimov to do, which was these new contract negotiations, which I think is the real starting point for the coup. What these contract negotiations said was basically that everybody with Wagner was going to have to sign an MOD contract. That would mean that the Russian Ministry of Defense would have more control over Wagner and more direct control over all of these mercenaries, instead of them being as independent as they were. And so Prigozhin, around this time, it is believed he started to plot, he started to plan his, I guess you could call it mutiny. I think mutiny is the most correct word. We use the word coup, but since it wasn't technically an attempt to remove Vladimir Putin from power, at least we don't think it was technically an attempt to remove Vladimir Putin from power. I think mutiny would probably be more accurate, but I think coup is not that far off either, since he was still trying to, according to new reports, literally kidnap Sergei Shoigu and Gerasimov, hold them hostage until he got everything he wanted, which was Wagner not being dissolved. This is according to his own words, which was, them fixing this mismanagement of the war, and also him saving his own ass, because once you lose favor in Russian politics, sometimes you tend to go out of windows. And so he tried to do a coup. Most people kind of know the story from here. They marched on Rostov, which is the headquarters of the Russian military command in Ukraine. It is also a major logistical hub into Donetsk and Luhansk for the Russian occupation. They then tried to march on Moscow. Vladimir Putin said, "Come on, man, that's not very nice." He didn't care. He kept marching the whole time, saying that the war was based on lies. This is all nonsense. This is all bullshit. Before eventually turning around right outside of Moscow because of a deal proposed by Lukashenko. And that's most of the basic information. There's a ton of other information, but I already talked quite a lot. There's just so much information.
No, I really enjoy hearing about it because, like, I've been keeping up with things, but you're way more tapped in than I am. So it's nice to hear about this because I'm pretty invested in I want Ukraine to remain a independent sovereign state, and I want it to remain its people to remain safe. I don't want them to be under threat of getting shelled by artillery from the Russians. I don't want them to be in fear of artillery units moving in to their neighborhoods that they're trying to hide out in to avoid the fighting, and slaughtering every military aged male that they can find, and sexually assaulting families and children. It's horrific. I've heard a lot about the things that Russian soldiers will do in some of these towns, and it is very upsetting. I'm
Well,
actually
the
really
thing is,
curious.
the thing that's interesting about this story, and I always found this part particularly interesting, is Wagner is known for its brutality, and it loves that reputation. It bathes in the reputation of its brutality. People think like a lot of people have heard about the fact that they execute their own soldiers with sledgehammers, that they will then upload these videos online in order to send a message to their other soldiers that if you disobey orders, if you don't attack when we tell you to attack. If you, as a prisoner from one of these prisons, you said, okay, yeah, I'll go to Ukraine. You come to Ukraine. You're like, oh, I have second thoughts. Prigozhin made it very clear from the get-go, you will be executed. They will consider that treason and execute you in the field, and they will publicize your execution if it suits their propaganda purposes. But this is not new. They actually were known for executing people way before this with sledgehammers. In 2015, they executed a Syrian man who was forcefully drafted into the Syrian military. He did not want to fight for Assad's regime. And once they found out that he wasn't going to fight, they beat him to death with sledgehammers, recorded it, and it was then posted online. His brother actually gave really good testimony for a recent Wall Street Journal documentary on the Wagner Group and the history of the Wagner Group. I'd recommend people go watch that. It was actually released 2 weeks before the Wagner coup. But Wagner has built this reputation. There's also been pictures of them, with like Ukrainian heads on sticks and stories of rape and extrajudicial killings and murders and a lot of terrible stuff. Which but it's also a strange dynamic because sometimes you'll get instances where a Wagner guy will go and will commit some atrocity like a rape, and then they'll punish him brutally because he's some prisoner soldier, and they're gonna, they're gonna make sure these guys, follow some sort of discipline. But they also don't really care if these soldiers brutalize the local population that much. They get away with it quite a lot. There's a lot of evidence of that, and so they've built up a reputation, and so now this dangerous mercenary army made up of a lot of rapists and criminals from prison, who a lot of times will come back from these deployments after being let go from Wagner and then rape and murder back in their hometowns and get arrested again, put back in prison. But hey, I guess another Wagner deployment is all they need. But this army of rapists and murderers that was armed by the Russian government, that everybody knows is a bunch of rapists and murderers who executes people with sledgehammers if they don't follow orders, marches across the border, and you're like a Russian street cop, and you're supposed to stop them. You're part of the Russian National Guard, and you're supposed to stop their tanks. You're supposed to stop these guys that are shooting down helicopters and command planes on their way to Moscow. It's your job to stop them. Yeah, a lot of them stepped out of the way. No, I don't want to be tortured to death by a bunch of Russian street gangs that were given machine guns and have a bunch of sledgehammers, and you want to go to work. It wasn't that surprising. A lot of them, stood out of the way.
Yeah. Yeah, obviously. I mean, at that point it's yeah, with the reputation they have, it's almost like a mob. It's more like the mob than a military unit. It's an organized state-backed criminal
it's
gang.
designed that way. It is actually designed that way on purpose. When Prigozhin was talking to these prisoners, there is prison culture in Russia that is extremely brutal. There's like this culture of like untouchables, these types of people that if you're like one of the like regular prisoners or part of a different class of prisoners, you're not supposed to touch. And he was like, let me be clear, you will not serve with these types of people. You will not serve with the homosexuals. You will not serve with these types of other people that were deemed untouchables for any number of reasons. We will respect your prison cultural traditions. They were saying that during the recruitment period while trying to get these people from prisons into Wagner, while the Russian MOD was a lot less accommodating for that. It was part of the reason why I think Wagner's prison recruitment was maybe somewhat more successful than the MOD's prison recruitment. But yeah, no, they were explicit. Like, we will keep the brutal culture of your prison within our military unit, and we will let you serve with your fellow prisoners, respecting that prison culture.
Oh. Yeah, that's not a good recipe for that's not a recipe for anything good to come out of that. That it's awful what they've been doing in Ukraine, but more recently, I guess they mobilized into Russia. I'm curious how much of an effect this has had on the front lines in Ukraine. I feel like there being so much turmoil back home would make like the already pretty low morale by the looks of things, Russian forces pretty scattered, a little bit like aimless.
So far, we don't have any like confirmed direct impact on the front line because the supplies to the front line were not disturbed for long enough for there to be a supply impact. They didn't take enough troops back from Ukraine for it to, they're pulling people out in order to deal with it. They did pull out Chechens from occupied Mariupol, but Mariupol is currently not the front line. It can be bombed, it can still be attacked, but it is currently not the front line. So in those aspects, it hasn't had a direct impact on the front line yet. I'm sure that it's probably on the mind of many Russian soldiers, and it's probably having morale impact. It's kind of hard for you to fight an army that's trying to remove you from your trench. That's in brutal hand-to-hand combat sometimes, and close trench-to-trench, nose-to-nose combat when you don't have a rear, when you've just found out that it doesn't take much for somebody to march on your nation's capital. Your nation doesn't have a flank, that your nation is essentially stretched thin. Now, maybe not everybody realizes that this kind of explodes Russia as not really having much of a flank, and that the National Guard, the Rosguardia, who the head of the Rosguardia, I believe his name's not Victor Bout. I forget what his name is, but it's Victor something. He's getting rewarded for staying loyal to Putin, but the National Guard couldn't stop. The National Guard, the Rosguardia, their version of our National Guard, couldn't stop Wagner. And so I think that is going to be a concern for Russian soldiers. The fact that they're already stretched so thin and they didn't have reserves to stop Wagner. That they resorted to digging holes in the road as they're on the way to Moscow in order to try to slow down Wagner. I also think that there is an element of if your central government isn't stable, it doesn't feel stable, how do you know you're going to continue to be supported? How do you know that you've got a secure command behind you? So I think there's like a psychological impact that's probably the only real direct immediate impact is having in Ukraine. But I think long term, that's where we're going to see the impact when it comes to this. It's going to be Russian oligarchs never before thinking about a post-Putin Russia, now starting to think about a post-Putin Russia. The soft Siloviki, which is not super happy about this war, in opposition to the hard Siloviki, which thinks they need to like crack down harder on this war, that needs to close the borders, be a lot more aggressive. They're going to start making contingency plans. They're going to start thinking about, well, actually, maybe we can get a way out of this war. I mean, it seems like Putin was pretty easily challenged, and the person who challenged him seemed to live to talk another day. Maybe we can challenge them. And so not only are they going to be making contingency plans, but they're going to start making plans of operation themselves. I also think that it's going to be very difficult for a lot of Russia's allies to not start considering option B, option C, option D, overseas allies, overseas alliance structures. If you're Armenia right now, knowing that Russia is your main security guarantee against a more aggressive and nationalistic Azerbaijan, which wants to violate your territorial integrity, well, maybe you should start talking to Anthony Blinken a little more. Maybe you should be talking to the Biden administration a little more. Maybe you should be talking to your other allies more. What if Russia suffers another security crisis? What's the message that's been sent here? Can they deal with another security crisis? So say you're a revolutionary in Kazakhstan who had your protest movement cracked down upon about 2 years ago now. Last time it had to be put down by Russian soldiers. Can Russian soldiers now be deployed? Is it going to be anything different than riot police? Maybe if you've got, some more heavy machinery, maybe you could stop just some Rosguardia National Guard troops who got shredded and torn apart in Ukraine. These are all questions that are going to be starting to be asked about Russia's allies and adversaries, about how strong is the Russian government, because the cracks look like they're starting to show. This is something that's going to have an effect on the amount of leverage Russia has when it comes to this war, because there's no way you have a military style push, you have like a beer hall push, you have a mutiny that goes all the way to your nation's capital, and then you come to the negotiating table and think that you're in the same position that you were in before. It's just impossible.
I feel like a lot of Putin's mythologized toughness has dissolved because of this. I feel like, especially here in America, I'm hearing a lot more people being like, yeah, Putin kind of bitched out. And I think you're definitely right about that. I'm actually curious about your opinion on, long term. Do you think that the Russian oligarchy might end up overthrowing Putin, putting someone else in place? Could there be an entire overhaul of the way that Russia is run? Could we see that in our lifetimes?
I mean, it's we people had already have been thinking about a post-Putin Russia for quite a while now, and Putin's in like he's just past 70, so he is getting up there in age, but he's also in a position where he could realistically like live and rule for like another 10 years, right? I mean, look how long it took for Robert Mugabe to actually be pushed out of office. So I think this is the weakest Putin has ever looked for the entirety of his administration since probably the start of the millennia. Maybe you could say a brief period during Chechnya, but besides that, this is the weakest Putin has ever looked. And so the idea of a post-Russia Putin, a Russia without Putin, and the fact that people now not only hype up the idea of, well, maybe one day we could challenge Putin, or imagine challenging Putin. People saw Putin directly get challenged, even though the challenge was more to Sergei Shoigu and Surovikin. And that's the thing that's so ironic about this, is that by allowing this situation to get out of control so that Prigozhin could challenge Shoigu and Gerasimov, which is assumedly the situation that happened, even though we, of course, don't have all the information. Even if it wasn't a direct challenge to Putin, or the intention was not to remove Putin, it's still removed from his authority, because the fact that he didn't endorse it, and it happened anyway, and then he said no, and then he kept going, and then when it was all over, the person who told him no is now on vacation in Belarus, possibly still able to operate a now somewhat neutered Wagner group to maybe still get mineral rights in Africa, still get oil pipeline, like oil deals in Syria, still get gold mines in the Central African Republic, still do deals with the Rapid Support Forces and Khalifa Haftar in Libya, still raking in that money. There are journalists right now calling Wagner recruitment centers all across Russia, and they're still recruiting. They are still recruiting people. Now, whether those people are going to be able to go to Belarus like Putin said that they will be able to go, I don't know. But right now, Putin looks weak. And that's why it seems that I think he started basically a purge, where he is now purging anybody who was somewhat sympathetic to Wagner. He's purging people who are not extremely, I would say, I don't know if the word's Putin loyalists, but people who maybe stood aside when everything was going on, people who stood down there. He's trying to remove them. And the most high-profile example of this is General Armageddon, Surovikin. He is somebody who cut his teeth in Chechnya, cut his teeth in Syria. He was in charge of the Russian air campaign in Syria, which was basically, is that a hospital? Not anymore. He leveled that country, and then he was in charge of the Russian war in Ukraine for a while. He even managed the withdrawal of Russian forces from Kherson when they were retreating from the city of Kherson across the river. And he was in the running to be probably like one of the top 3 defense officials in the whole country. It was him, Shoigu, and Gerasimov. And many people would say that right now he might have been favored. But it's been revealed, I think 30 or 40 minutes ago by CNN. And so now this is starting to paint the picture around Surovikin, where he was releasing this kind of weird message in the middle of the night at the start of the coup, with him holding a gun saying, "Stand down, Wagner, stand down." And he looked kind of intoxicated, and I was confused about it at the time. But now we're finding out that he's been detained, that he's been arrested, and he might have been a secret Wagner VIP member the entire time due to documents obtained by CNN 30 minutes ago, which is unbelievably juicy information. Yeah. I'm shocked by that. I think a lot of people are going to be shocked by that. We all knew that Surovikin and Prigozhin had a cozy relationship, but I don't think anybody thought it was potentially this cozy.
Damn, okay, so that's pretty scandalous. I'm really curious, because the Russian propaganda outlets, your Russia Todays and your figures who are very clearly just shills for Russia, like the tanky types. I'm really curious, because I know you've argued with these people, you've dealt with their bullshit. How has this affected their propaganda? Is there a schism? Are they all like Putin loyalists, or are they siding with Wagner? Is there a schism?
it's very strange because on one hand, when I was looking at Russian Telegram, they're all infighting like crazy. There's people who are like, the only problem with this is that Prigozhin didn't go too far, or Prigozhin's a traitor, he's going to make us lose the war. I mean, there's opinions everywhere. All you need to do is look at the reaction to Prigozhin's second Telegram speech when he finally like announced he was calling this whole thing off of the deal with Lukashenko, and look at the difference between the reaction when he announced he was doing the coup, he was doing this military mutiny, and when he called it off. There is a diversity of opinion, at least online. Now, of course, Telegram messages. I mean, it would be like looking at Twitter to try to gauge American public opinion. You could immediately see what the problems would be with that because Twitter is Twitter and Telegram is Telegram. Okay, it's just it's not that different when it comes to the toxicity than Twitter, but still, it shows that there are a lot of people who disagree about this right now. When you go to the more English-speaking, like Russian propaganda sphere, it's much stranger because it's either I'm seeing a lot of people who loved Prigozhin pretending that he doesn't exist anymore and they're just trying to move on. I saw a lot of people who praise Surovikin as somebody who, like, the slaughterer of terrorists in Syria, and he was such a hero defending Assad, who are now pretending he doesn't exist, or just completely trying to ignore the situation as if they never knew who this person was. But the strangest reaction is the conspiracy theories. For example, I was on a panel recently with somebody by the name of Non-Smoker. Now, Non-Smoker is not a very popular person, like when it comes to like commentary or anything. So I don't know if he's the best example, but other people have said a similar theory. The idea, I think Jackson Hinkle has it, a few other has, that this whole thing was very suspect, and it maybe was a ploy to move Wagner into Belarus so they can make another march on Kiev. Not only does that not make sense, is it too costly to the image of the Kremlin? Why would they have to kill their own airmen and have planes shot down to do it? Where now Putin looks weak because he can't, defend the airmen that got killed. He's not bringing anybody who killed those airmen to justice. But it also probably wouldn't work. Like 35,000 Wagner mercenaries are not enough to take Kiev. Not enough nearly. Definitely since the flooding in Kiev due to like the beaver dams never being deconstructed because all the civilians left, and the mines that have been placed then, and the fortifications that have been built then. It doesn't make any sense. So people are either coping, or they're just pretending it's not happening, or that it's not a big deal. The people who are pretending it's not a big deal are the strangest, because like I have this copy pasta I read
Yeah.
on a panel recently. I don't know if you're okay with me reading this
No,
copy
go ahead.
pasta, but it's I think it's a good representation of the problems that Russia is facing. And if anybody wants to say this isn't that big of a deal, I think kind of looking at a different perspective might help. Day 487 of the 3-day special operation to denazify Mexico. Mexico has launched a counteroffensive against U.S.-held Tijuana and is suffering 500 to 1,000 casualties a day. Joe Biden and Mark Milley tried to dissolve the McDonald's private military company, which has become oversized and bloated with penal troops from prisons across the United States. Threaten the McDonald's CEO with treason and death if he does not comply. The McDonald's CEO takes his entire private military company and takes over Austin, Texas, and Atlanta, Georgia, without resistance on the way to Mark Milley's office. Joe Biden appears on TV, visibly shaking. "Come on, man. Don't fight, man. That's wrong." 7 Apache helicopters shot down in the chaos, and a command aircraft is lost. Justin Trudeau mediates a deal with the McDonald's PMC to let them leave to Canada in exchange for not killing Mark Milley. McDonald takes the deal. Poll posters from India and Pakistan applaud Joe Biden's tactical wit and cunning in handling the situation. Another flawless win for the United States.
I love it. I love putting it in the perspective of like America doing the same type of shit. Because these people's politics pretty much begins and ends at America bad, Russia good. So it's a really good meme. I like that one a lot. I'm also curious about feeling a sudden wave of nausea. I hope that passes. Last time I looked at the UA map, the live UA map, and it seems like that's still the case. There is what's the name of this river? You probably know better than I, but the fighting seems to be stopped at this river. And notably, a lot of fighting is happening at the mouth of said river, where I'm pretty certain that is now flooded. But even prior to that, a lot of this area is wetland. It's a delta of a river, and it seems like that geographical barrier is playing a huge part in holding the line right now. Yeah, I think it might be
Do you
the
mean do you
Dnieper
mean
River.
the Dnieper River?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've visited the Dnieper River on a few occasions. I filmed at it during the Kherson counteroffensive. At the start of it, 24 hours after it began, I was actually, I think, 3 miles from the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant. We were doing a story, interviewing locals about a possible nuclear disaster and how it could affect their lives. And the river is big. It is not easy to cross, and to do a crossing is an extreme strategic risk. And so most analysts for a while have hypothesized that the Ukrainians were going to launch their counteroffensive in the Zaporozhye direction. Now, that's not the only place that people have hypothesized. Some people say maybe they're going to launch their big counteroffensive near Bakhmut. I don't think that's extremely likely for them to dedicate the majority of their forces for, quite frankly, not that overall an important strategic location, even if it's become extremely symbolically important. The safe bet has always been Zaporozhye, and that seems to be where a lot of the prepping actions, a lot of the probing maneuvers, a lot of the preparatory attacks, where they're trying to take high ground here and take a few villages there in order to get into a good position to like eventually smash through the Russian line of defense. That seems to be the Ukrainian plan, is to dedicate these new units, which have been somewhat trained by the West and supplied by the West, but not only the West, by their own domestic trainers as well. They're going to take these new units that have been created and smash them into the Russian defenses there, and hopefully be able to remove the dragon teeth, which are anti-tank traps that the Russians have set up there, anti-tank ditches. They'll be able to cross those if they have good engineers and people who are working with like good combined arms warfare, if they're led well and they work together, and able to overcome the strong Russian fortifications. That at least is the hope. But that's not the only place where action is happening right now. A lot of fighting is still going on around Bakhmut, even if the fighting for the city center itself, the urban center, is done, with a lot of territory actually trading hands in the last few weeks.
Yeah, I've been updating the live UA map and coming back to it for the last week or so, and it's crazy how many updates happen every day on here. So, for example, 7 minutes ago, there were explosions reported in Zaporizhia. I'm really bad when it comes to pronouncing the name of these Ukrainian locations, but I do my best. I was also, you mentioned it earlier, and I wish I'd written it down, because that's what I'm going to start doing with combos in the future. You mentioned that you went out with a group of people helping animals in the flooded areas after the power plant was destroyed. And it reminded me a lot of, I grew up in Florida. Hurricanes are a big deal. And a lot of people who, just can't handle the hurricane coming will just leave. Fair enough, right? But they'll leave their pets behind. And a common one that happens, and it's very tragic, and there are a lot of people that go out and they help these animals, is they'll put their pet in a crate on the porch. And, if the water level rises, what'll happen, right? Was that a huge issue? Like, I'm curious about, like, the animal saving efforts.
The main two issues that we ran into, there was three issues really. I think we ran into during the preparatory stages on the day that we went out to film on the water. The first issue was that that they were then requiring at that point that we had to have metal boats, and the Germans had to get a metal boat because they actually only had plastic boats on them, like inflatable boats, stuff like that they were using in the more urban environments. So they got a red speedboat. Which we have since found out, and I don't know because we haven't published the big story yet. There's only so much I could say because we're working to make sure all the we get the whole story straight and we present all the evidence in one location. And it was also purchased by Offbeat Research, so there's only so much I can say until that story is released. But there was a problem with this boat before. We were not told there were problems with the boat's engine starting before, and we ran into those problems again when we actually put it on the water. So that was something I was not very happy with because a lot of the response down there has been somewhat unorganized. not everybody was expecting this to happen, obviously. And so
Yeah.
the response has not been super centralized. There's not like a really good centralized gridding system where like all this area has been cleared, as we can see on the map. So you just got to go here and here and here. A lot of it is done by word of mouth and in like group chats and stuff like that. And that was one of the problems that we ran into, was the fact that the boat they ended up giving us to actually use that, they didn't even turn on. The engine didn't work. But the first issue was the debris from popping plastic boats. So we had to have a metal boat. The other issue was mines, because a lot of mines had been displaced by the water. And so mines could just straight up be floating down the river, hit your
Ooh.
boat, and then it kills you. And I filmed for a month with the miners in the Kharkiv Oblast. I lived with them and filmed with them for a month. I actually went on Polish TV yesterday to talk about that. But so I knew that that was a legitimate risk. And I have seen photographs and videos of these mines being displaced, and many of them are probably going to end up way down the river in Odessa, not just in the area that we were filming in. And the last big security risk, and this was the thing that I think most people were mainly afraid of, was Russian attacks, Russian missile attacks, Russian shelling attacks, Russian mortar attacks. And that was what we actually ended up engaging with that day, because when we went out on the water, our German aid group and a friend of mine by the name of John Jones, they got shelled by the Russian military while they were on the water bank, and they were coming back because the engine didn't work, and they were, gonna pack up for the day.
Yeah, God, and it's people going out to save animals. Like they shelled people going out to save animals from a flooded town. It's pretty disgusting. Yeah. Oh, is there anything in particular that you wanted to bring up? Because right now I'm drawing a blank. But is there anything in particular that you feel is important to touch on?
I guess like the only thing I want to touch on is that the evidence in this case is very much overwhelming. We're going to try to be filing it with some legal bodies. We're going to try to file it with the Ukrainian government and try to file it a few other locations, and we're going to clearly list out all the evidence. We've been making sure to, abide by all the guidelines while interviewing people. I make sure not to be the ones interviewing people afterwards, having other people interview people, because victims can interview victims. And we're trying to do this the right way. But even though this is one of the cases where we probably have the most overwhelming evidence of this instance, this is not the first time that the Russians have shelled rescue teams. I know that the chief rabbi of Ukraine, when he was doing rescue efforts in Kherson, he was shelled. I knew another person down there by the name of Vianek. He was injured twice during rescue efforts, once by Russian shelling. I took photographs on him. I posted that on Instagram and Twitter. He got hurt by Russian shelling as well. This has become a pretty common occurrence. Some people have actually died in these Russian shelling attacks on rescue operations, a few of which had actually crossed the river in order to pick up, even though we hadn't, had actually crossed the river in order to pick up civilians who were stranded on the Russian side of the river, who have not gotten really any support from the Russian occupation authorities.
Oh yeah. That reminds me a little bit. There was one more thing I wanted to bring up that comes to mind, and it's somewhat related. There's been a couple viral videos like this, but there was one that came out in particular recently of a Russian soldier who tries to leave the. It's been a bit since I watched. I think it was a trench where he wants to turn himself into the Ukrainian army and surrender, and he starts walking like out into into no man's land across it, and his old friends behind him, his former comrades, start shooting at him while a Ukrainian drone directs him how to get to safety.
Yeah, I posted that video on Twitter. It's really it was a really amazing video. I was really touched by the humanity of it and the journey that the person went on that we watched, because many people who surrender have to go on that journey where you basically have to walk into the enemy lines after being told that the enemy will they're a bunch of like Nazi murderers who are gonna like kill you and execute you, and you've got to like be like, you know what, my commanding officer, whoever, they're lying to me. It's not worth it. I don't want to die here. I'm going to walk into the Ukrainian lines after raising up my hands. And also, in many instances, when you look at these videos, taking off your body armor because you could have a grenade or something stuck in there. So you're literally going in to these lines bare to surrender with no protection. So it takes an unbelievable amount of trust. But lucky for that guy, he gave that trust to the Ukrainians, and he got lucky. He got very lucky. It's an incredible video, very touching.
Yeah, I like that one a lot. And then there's the one from this was back when the war first started. The video of the guy who had surrendered and was able to record a video for his family to say, "Hey, I'm okay. The Russians are lying. We're told we're going to be heroes when we got here and we'd be welcomed with parades, but no, they don't want us here. It's all lies." And that was a good one too.
Yeah, what's interesting is that I don't really pay much attention to like POW videos and what they say, because no matter what, it's impossible to 100% trust what a POW is saying in any circumstance.
That's true. Yeah.
Because you never truly know the conditions that they're living with unless you've checked them yourselves. And even then you would need to make sure you're not being given like some guided like whatever tour.
Yeah.
But I don't really pay much attention to it. But what was really interesting, and this brings it back to the Wagner coup, is if you listened to what Yevgeny Prigozhin was saying in the lead up, and as this criticism escalated more and more and more against the Russian Ministry of Defense, during the Wagner coup, the actual military push, the mutiny, he peaked in his criticisms by finally saying this war is based on lies. This entire war was based on lies. We're losing 1,000 people a day. The command has no clue what they're doing. They don't have a plan, and it was wild that we saw that type of critique from somebody who was Putin's personal caterer and in charge of one of the most powerful military organizations in Russia and the Russian armed forces. And it also shows that people in the Russian elite 100% know what's going on. I mean, a lot of them know what's going on. Most of them know what's going on. Maybe if Putin's shielded personally, he doesn't truly know what's going on, but a lot of them know the truth of it. But they have to do their best to hide that truth, because if everybody heard that truth and started to believe that truth, it'd be very difficult to keep convincing them to send their kids to go die.
Yeah, I mean, you're right about the POW videos, and that is a good point. But I mean, yeah, there's just so much. The fact that Prigozhin himself came out and just said, "No, it's all bullshit." Like all the justifications that the state media is telling you for why we're doing this war, it's all bullshit. I think probably the biggest reason, like you mentioned before, is nationalism. The idea that Ukraine is, rightfully part of Russia, that should be like Kiev, Russia, or whatever they call it. The Russian nationalists do. So that's a big part of it. But I think for a lot of this, the fact that you have somebody who was seen as this hero of Russia fighting against the Ukrainian Nazi frauds or whatever, he's now letting the cat out of the bag to the Russian people. That puts the Russian state, obviously Putin is in a pretty fucked situation. The oligarchs know that he is not as strong as he fronts, and he doesn't have as much support as he once did. He looks really weak. And not only that, but I think Russia looks pretty weak right now in the grand scheme of things. This is probably the weakest Russia has looked in a long time. Would you agree?
I think this is the weakest that Putin's regime has ever looked, ever. I don't think there's ever been a time where his regime has looked this weak before. If something like this was to happen in the United States, we'd be hearing nonstop about how the West is collapsing. We're reaching towards the end. This is like our version of the beer hall push, late stage Weimar Germany. But when it happens in Russia, obviously the Russian government is making a good effort to make sure that we don't have that type of a dialogue. But imagine having this happen in your own backyard. How would you feel? That's how a lot of Russians are feeling right now. And completely unsure of their future, unsure about the stability of their government, unsure about who comes after Putin. And that's the thing that I think scares a lot of people is if Putin goes away, nobody knows who's going to replace him, right? People talk about like, oh, well, isn't that the vice president's job? But that's just not how the system works. This is not how the system works here. It's so there's a lot of Russians who are now starting to have that brutal conversation of, a post-Putin Russia, and that is the long-term damage that Putin can't undo. It is the mentality that has changed, the mentality about the future of the country and what people and how people don't. Maybe they respect his regime, but they don't see it as infallible anymore.
Yeah, it's I think it's gonna shake the future of what's going to go down in this area of the world pretty significantly. The fact that somebody like this is such a like hard situation to deal with from Putin's perspective, and you've got I've seen a little bit of like Russia Today's attempts to try to smooth this over. The idea that like, oh, actually Prigozhin and the Wagner group, they're actually just they're crazy. They aren't trustworthy. They betrayed Russia. They've this whole time been mismanaging the invasion. They are why Ukraine hasn't already fallen at this point. It seems like the go-to response has been to say, actually, this was the Wagner group and Prigozhin's fault that we haven't, defeated Ukraine a long time ago, is the perspective I've seen from Russia Today. Is that what you think they're going to be running with, like the Russian state media and Putin's side of things?
I don't think they can really blame the war failing on Wagner. If they were to admit that they had that much control, that would be kind of insane. It's already crazy that we have Putin on like Russian TV yelling like, yes, we gave Wagner these billions and billions and billions of dollars, when for years journalists and investigators have been trying to go through all the shell companies that Wagner works under the blanket of in the back rooms in the shadows, and now we have they're trying to just vaguely connect them to the Russian government, trying to improve these connections, and now Putin's out here saying, yes, we give them billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars all the time. Yes, we give the raper murderous division, we give them all the money in the world. Yes, yes, yes. So there's you can already see the seismic shift that's happening in politics because of that. But I don't think that message is necessarily going to connect from the word of mouth anecdotal stuff I'm being told about from the people that are still living in Russia. This is a hot button topic at work. This is a hot button topic at the dinner table. People are confused about the future of their country. Many of them are confused that if this was treason by Wagner, then why are Wagner getting away with it? Why can Prigozhin continue to operate his organization? Why is he in Belarus? And for the people who support Prigozhin, a lot of them, while angry that he didn't go further, some of them will feel even more emboldened to be more critical of Putin's regime in the future, because if Prigozhin can get away with it, then why can't they get away with it? Why can't these other people get away with it? Why can't everybody get away with it? So it's hard for me to imagine that this narrative is going to, soothe the Russian people enough. It just doesn't make much sense. If it was if it was completely bloodless, it would be easier, but planes were getting shot down. It's very hard to just say this, some internal political dispute, yada yada. Usually, when you're throwing in like a new Congress in the United States, we don't find out 20 soldiers shot dead outside by Liz Cheney's forces. That's not a thing.
Yeah, I mean, like even with Jan 6th, I'd say like even with having Confederate flags fly in the capital of this country for the first time in history, that was probably less of a big deal and less of a wow. This makes the stability of our democracy look bad. I feel like Jan 6th didn't even do as much damage as this will do, because there was not like armed militia guys rolling through shooting down police helicopters. That like it's nowhere near on this. I mean, it's close, but nowhere near on the same level. That's gonna be hard for Putin to just let that slide and still look strong.
I mean,
it's impossible.
the January 6th protesters took over like a few federal buildings, and of course, I think January 6th is serious, but January 6th protesters didn't take the supply lines into a major war zone, take over a military HQ command that governs an entirety of the war zone that Russia is fighting in, while marching like tanks on Moscow, directly rejecting the orders of the president too. Because this would be like January 6th, but Trump told them to leave and they didn't.
Yeah.
And also they've taken over a major U.S. city. It's really hard to compare these things, but when it comes to the stability of Russian institutions, they've never looked more fragile. Because one of the main takeaways, if you're Vladimir Putin, is nobody stopped them. Why wasn't the FSB? Why wasn't the National Guard? Why wasn't anybody able to stop them? I mean, it gets gotten to the point where he's trying to say, congratulations to the military, you saved Russia. But all the military did was get shot at.
Yeah,
That's that's all they did. They didn't stop them.
a lot of people are now realizing how easy it would be to overthrow Putin with a armed coup. And that's...
Well, I don't know if it would be easy now. It's hard to say now. But I like it depends on like how the crackdown goes. But it's a lot easier than anyone could have thought.
Yeah, like they were like, they got that far? That's how far they were able to get? And Putin's just like letting them chill now? Okay.
If Prigozhin had more,
we'll see.
If Prigozhin had more allies and he had more weight with like the Siloviki, like potentially he could have gone all the way with this.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah, I mean I was really sick when the like the height of this was going down, so I didn't get to follow it day of. By the time I was like, all right, I can sit at my computer for long enough without having to run to the toilet to vomit. I went ahead and I started like reading up on it, and it was already like past this point, you know. Prigozhin was already running off. So it's interesting to hear your perspective on it because you're way more tapped in than me. And it's been so far very fun talking with you and learning about this stuff. I mean, obviously it's pretty grim subject matter, but I also do, you know, I enjoy keeping up with these things and not being left in the dark on what's going on. I think one of the most important things you can do, especially if you have a platform, and this is what you've dedicated yourself to in the last like year and a half, is exposing and bringing light to what is happening in Ukraine and in Russia. Because the worst thing that can happen is this stuff just gets swept under the rug. Giving it the spotlight, giving these war crimes, giving the destabilization attention as much as possible is very much what we need to be doing, and I admire what you do a lot.
Thank you. I mean, I think it's important to have as many cameras in this country recording everything that's happening as possible. There's so much stories to tell. There's so many things happening here of historical significance. And I want to make sure that there is enough source material that nobody can really deny the types of things that went on here. Because you can already see, like, machines, like media machines and propaganda machines working into overdrive to try to change that history as we live it. And a lot of them are not even in Russia, but they're for whatever reason allied themselves with these narratives. Like, for example, Tucker Carlson, who said it was, for example, the Novakhovka dam explosion was probably the Ukrainians, who said that for every Russian soldier that dies, 7 Ukrainian soldiers dies. Just these things that he just does not have evidence of. Just like these bold and like boldly wrong and like these wrong claims, these lies that he's pushing out on cable television, that he's pushing out on the most popular news show in the United States. And there has to be good source material to push back against these claims. Then there has to be people to gather that source material. And I would hope that in my time here, I focus on a lot more of the human elements than say the super corporate friendly, like 5-second news bulletin of just a bunch of soldiers running around shooting at stuff, but trying to focus on maybe more the humanitarian side of it or the personal side of the war, which I think a lot of the more mainstream publications can't do because they have to, you know, plug Tampax commercials, and taking 30 minutes to talk to somebody is
you got to throw in the Arby's ad
commercials.
Exactly, yeah. And you do a really good job of humanizing it because mainstream media outlets cover this stuff, and it's like, this army moved into this town that you've never heard of before in a different language, and then also this force that you've probably never heard of took this many losses, and it's just numbers. It's just, like, to a lot of people, it's just words. It just flies over their head. There is no emotional attachment to that to actually motivate them to care a lot of the time. It's just politics, words, politics, dry. But what you're doing is actively on the ground showing what it is like for the people in Ukraine who are having their entire lives flipped upside down by the Russian regime. And And not only that, but there's been some other pretty great channels as well. I'm sure you're familiar with her. But during the start of the war, when everybody was doing like hardcore coverage of everything, before it was very quickly realized this is not going to be resolved or ended anytime soon, there's this woman who was in a shelter with her family, with her I believe 2 kids, and her husband was in. It's been a while. I don't even know if there's actively fighting happening there right now. But her husband was out fighting, like, on the other side of the country, and she was uploading like 2 videos a day, one at night and one in the morning. Like, hey, it's nighttime. Listen to the bombs. Like we're all here in this underground. I think it was like a subway or a station or something. Just trying to stay away from artillery fire, getting bombed. And videos like that where it's just, this is the lives of people that are just like you who are living through this, the actual emotional attachment along with the hard numbers and data, which are important, of course, the troop movements and the dry stuff that doesn't really have anything to latch on to emotionally is important to know. But those one-on-one interactions, those stories that they're anecdotes. They matter. They do matter a lot, and it matters a lot.
Some of the most important journalism in any war is the human interest stories. It's the stories that kind of show like the culture or like standard of living or day-to-day experiences of people on the ground, or their personal experiences or their personal stories. It'd be very bad if historically all we knew was just like casualty numbers and like battle graphs and like this building was taken here and this building was taken here and then this building was blown up. That would be a very bad way in showing the reality of war, because war is also has a very human side to it. It was part of the importance of a lot of the Vietnam War coverage on the ground, showing the reality of the fighting, the human interest side, or any of the wars that the media has done a good job, and the media usually does a good job when it shows the personal effects of the war and the conflict and the death on everyday people and their personal stories. Because that's the way you're going to get people, I think, interested. Because people are working their 9 to 5, their daily lives. And if you take them from their office job, put them in front of the TV, and then give them just a long, boring history lesson with a bunch of graphs and battle data, it's not a good way to engage people about the importance of the humanity of these stories.
Yeah, you need something to get people attached to, a story that actually gets people emotionally invested, because just so many people want to turn their brains off of this kind of thing. They feel like just thinking about it is scary to them, and the idea of learning about it is, sometimes they just find it boring, and sometimes they're just like, no, it's too stressful, it's too scary for me to engage with. And that kind of upsets me. I won't say it kind of upsets me. It just really does upset me, because this matters a lot, not just to obviously it affects us here in America, but, you watch these videos or you hear about like the massacres that are committed, and it's like, no, people need to care about this. They do. They really need to care about this. And I was actually going to ask you, because you talked about how you know some people that are still in Russia, and give you some perspective on what it's like to live there right now. I was curious if you've interviewed a YouTuber named No Fuckers, NFKRZ.
No, I haven't interviewed him, but I'm familiar with him.
Oh, do you have plans to interview him?
No, I don't have plans to interview him. I've never talked to him. I've never met him.
I feel like a lot of people would love that, because he's been making a lot of content about like not being a big fan of the war at all, and not liking what it's like to live in Russia. But I think he's currently living in Croatia. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd also like an interview with Zelensky, probably
That'd be
Obama as
awesome.
well, PewDiePie, the Queen, post-mortem.
I feel like
I
you could
have
get
a
a.
lot of.
I feel like you could get a few of those interviews, though. I feel like you could
The
get.
Obama one?
I think you could get. I think you'll get an interview with Obama.
An
Yeah, I think
Obama
that's in the
interview. I
future.
don't think I can. I don't think I look. I think the lowest level interviewer I saw do it, I think was what was that guy? What was that? Is that Indian guy who hosted a show kind of like John Oliver's? Hassan Minhaj, I think was his name.
Yeah, I think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, Hassan Minhaj is the lowest, is I guess the least popular interviewer that I know of that can probably land an interview with Obama. I can't think of, I don't know how we get an interview with Barack Obama.
I don't know, maybe. I feel like it could happen. You know, things that
Why?
you would
Why would
never
Obama
expect.
talk to me?
I feel like you've got. I feel like if the Democratic Party is smart, it wants to try to appeal to Gen Z, and I feel like speaking with somebody like you would be good. I don't know. I feel like you could get.
I wanna come on
Yeah.
hippy dippy and
You've
debate
got a history in
CTV.
politics. Yeah.
I need to debate CTV, Mr. Dylan Burns.
I
Yeah,
feel like
I don't know what's happening.
I feel like you've got your roots in like the hardcore real politics enough that I feel like you could build the bridges necessary to maybe not like hardcore interview Obama, but to meet him at least.
But to meet Obama, I don't know. Maybe I could. I think the furthest I could get maybe is like one of those like telecasts where he talks to like 1,000 people in a room at once.
He does like a Twitter space.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, like a Twitter space or something. Like no, they do this thing where like people can donate to go to these events online where like politicians speak to like 1,000 people and they call it like, wow, an event with donors or supporters, but it's like 1,000 people in a Zoom call.
Yeah, that would obviously be the easiest way, but I don't know. Like after AOC playing Among Us, which is a special case, and I don't know. It feels like the Republican Party has not been afraid of modernizing itself and adapting to this like internet era of culture war politics online, basically shaping everything it's talked about in real world politics. Like the word woke was something that was just said by random grifter chuds for years before it started becoming the big boogeyman word that everybody talks about now on the right. It feels like the Democratic Party has to catch up to that eventually, and you know, I feel like public figures online are going to be seen at some point, maybe not like soon or super soon, but at some point near the same level at least as of worthy of reaching out to and having a dialogue with as somebody like John Oliver or some like mainstream liberal like on live TV politics / comedy edutainment creator. I feel like that kind of thing is gonna happen at some point.
Look, if the Xander Hall show reschedules with me last second, then I don't know how I'm gonna get Obama to actually sit down for an interview.
I was sick. I was not feeling good, unironically, but like no, I do genuinely think you. Sorry, I do genuinely think that you will be able to get some surprising conversations at some point. You've achieved a lot, and I don't think you should play yourself down. I think if you aim high, then you can only miss high. You know what I mean?
Got you. Okay, I want to interview Prigozhin. I'm gonna start a new chapter of Wagner.
I feel like you could reform it. You could get I feel like you could box Prigozhin and absolutely beat him with the terms of if you win, you get to own the Wagner group, and of course all of their out of state income and all of the fingers they have, all the pies they have their fingers in. I feel like that would be good terms. You box him, beat his ass, win the Wagner group, and then reform it.
Yeah, I'm gonna make the Wagner group woke.
Yeah,
I'm
make it.
I'm gonna make it woke.
They them Wagner group.
Yeah,
No.
I'm gonna be the they them leader of the Wagner group. Instead of using like big sledgehammers, we're gonna use like maybe smaller wooden kitchen mallets. See, that's reform.
Hell yeah, that's improvement. You can't argue against
improvement.
that. You can't say that's a bad change. No, but in all seriousness, this has been a good conversation. I feel like I've been a lot more informed on this than I was before, and it's been really nice to get an on-the-ground perspective. For everybody in chat who wants a little bit of an idea of how dedicated Dylan is to this, I hosted him the other day, and he was going over the video footage he got of getting war crimed by Russia, and he said he swears a few times in the footage where he almost dies. And on stream, he says, "I'm sorry about the swearing. I try to cut down on that kind of thing because this type of footage could be used as evidence. Like it's important video footage. It could be historically relevant." And it's like, you are very dedicated to this. That you're like, sorry, I was swearing when I almost died. This footage needs to be able to be used for to hold Russia accountable and for historical context. That is some serious dedication.
It'd really suck if the only way I ever existed in a history book was just me yelling cocksucker or something.
Yeah, that's definitely understandable. But
then again, that is also a decent legacy too. But I'd rather that not be the legacy.
Yeah, there was we can finish up on this. I don't know if you've probably seen this YouTube channel. It's called Civdiv. He's a guy who posts a lot of footage of like his buddies GoPro video fighting as volunteer fighters in Ukraine. And one of them I watched, this team of volunteer fighters, and I'm sure some Ukrainian soldiers mixed in, end up killing an entire team of Russian Spetsnaz that were like holed up in this very classic Soviet era looking concrete block of a building. And the guy like throws a grenade in there and it blows up. And he says, the guy who's got the GoPro on, "Those fucking retards." It's like,
there's a lot of cussing in these videos. If you look at a lot of these videos, there's a lot of dropping the F slur, the R slur, a lot of cussing in these videos, a lot.
Yeah, and I mean, understandably so. But when you said like,
I'm not killing anybody, I don't got no excuse.
Well, almost dying's a pretty good excuse, but like the fact that you're so dedicated to ensuring that, like I want to control that instinct to like say, oh shit, as running for cover, right? So that this footage can be like, because this footage has a greater, value. If I go about it, it just that you saying that kind of struck me in a certain way that was like, respect for that. A lot of respect.
There's two ways I can go about reporting, and there's in some stories I want to be very much involved, as in I feel like if I'm going to be covering like a refugee aid center, I feel like I would like to contribute in some way, so I have a better understanding of like how the process works, so I can explain it to the audience, right? But in another environment, sometimes you should be like National Geographic, where you should kind of not really even know much about the cameraman, and in scenarios like that. At least temporarily, you should not know much about the cameraman unless it's like a retrospective about the footage after it's been published.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that's definitely a good thing. And I'm glad to see that you're okay and that you're doing with your platform such a good thing. Like it's I can proudly say that like I'm proud to say that I'm friends with you. You're doing amazing things. And I mean that very sincerely.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Xander.
Yeah.
Hey, I do want you to know, though, okay? I still will never, ever, no matter how many times I get shot at over here, I'll never take back kicking you from that debate panel, okay? I'm still as brutal and cruel as ever.
Vince McMahon of the Twitch debate sphere.
I'm still as brutal and cruel, okay? You don't get too friendly of an opinion of me. I'm still a backstabbing snake.
I'll keep that in mind. No, but in all seriousness, though, thank you so much for coming on. This has been a really good combo. Do you want to go ahead and let everyone know where to find you?
Sure. You can find me at CIA.gov, NSA.gov, or what's the last one? Oh, ATF.gov.
And Department of Homeland Security.
No. I harassed people there and I got fired. It was very bad. Yeah, I have a restraining order. But you can also find me at dylanburns.tv. That's my website if you want to be watching my streams. I just like a normal DG. It's like a normal .gg site. Also on YouTube, Dylan Burns TV, Dylan Burns Live for my second channel for my streamer stuff, and Dylan Burns 1776 on Twitter, Dylan Burns TV on Instagram.
Hell yeah. I highly recommend you follow Dylan Burns' Twitter. Like, regardless of whether or not, like, you want to see his content, you should be following him on Twitter. The updates on the war in Ukraine, the foreign policy stuff is always top tier, okay? You should definitely be following Dylan on Twitter. Like, if anything else, Twitter is going to be the best place to definitely like get some pretty good tweets. I enjoy your Twitter feed a lot. So yeah.
Yeah, but you can also visit me on platforms that give me money too. You know
that yeah. But just to the people who are like, nah, I'm not gonna follow on Twitch. I'm not gonna sub on YouTube. I'm an exception to that. You know, you should at the very least follow that Twitter because you're pretty based on Twitter. You got some good stuff there. But yeah, it's been really fun having you on. I hope you have a great day, dude.
Thank you. You too. You have a good one. Bye bye.
Yeah, have a good one. That was a really good convo. I had a lot of fun with that one. Dylan's a cool guy. I've been wanting to keep more up on what's been happening in Ukraine and Russia, particularly with the Wagner coup, because I literally couldn't follow that. Like, I was sick, and I could not sit at my computer for very long periods of time. And by the time I was not sick and I could sit at my computer, it was over. It was already done. And it was like, oh, well, I just kind of totally missed all that shit, didn't I? So it's really nice to get the a perspective from somebody who's very much like dedicated themselves to covering this stuff and who is literally risking their life to cover it on the ground. Like, you really should be following Dylan and his content, and especially his Twitter, because he's risking his life. Like, he's risked his life multiple times covering this stuff. And it seems like he's not opposed to risking his life again. And I've got a fuck ton of respect for that. So yeah, go follow Dylan. There will, of course, be links down below in the description. So please go check those out. Go send some support. Go send some love. And I hope you enjoyed. There we go. How did you guys enjoy that? I had a lot of fun. Well, obviously the parts discussing like the really heinous shit Russia has done was not fun, but you know, the general prospect of having this conversation with Dylan was fun. Mega base segment. I'm glad you guys think so. I think I've got time to squeeze one more in, but I'm going to be honest with you guys. I did not feel too good today. Very tired, very nauseous. And I felt so bad for having to reschedule on Dylan yesterday that I was like, nope, no matter what, I am streaming today. I'm going live. I am not pushing my talk with Dylan back another day. I'm streaming today, even if it results in me throwing up. And I'm not going to lie, guys. I very nearly reached for the barf bag about halfway through that convo. When we were talking about the river, I felt like a wave of nausea hit out of nowhere that was like, do not throw up, do not throw up, do not throw up, do not throw up. And thankfully it passed. Zan, did you catch the Vosh play? I have not hung out with Vosh in like a week. No, more than a week. It's been like 2 weeks since I hung out with Vosh in real life. Last time we hung out, we went to the range. The last person I hung out with was Cherry. So like I don't think Cherry got me sick either though. I think there's probably just a general localized Seattle like flu. That happens. Back in Florida, there would be like a flu season would hit, and a very particular type of the flu would like circle around whatever city or town or part of Florida I'm in, and it'd be like all the people that I know would have the same symptoms, right? So yeah. My whole family got sick recently too. Yeah, it's not COVID. We know for a fact it's not COVID. I think Vosh took a COVID test, and I've had COVID before, so I know for a fact it's not COVID. Yeah, streamer influenza. I am back from touching grass and playing golf. I took pictures of the outside world. Would you like to see? Yeah, send them my way, Balth. I'll check them out after stream. Yeah, for those that don't know, Balth lives in like one of the most beautiful places in the world. I am genuinely excited to be able to go visit Balth in real life and get some really cool... Yeah, affluenza. It's influenza. That was a good combo. Yeah, go follow Dylan. You're missing out if you haven't. He also, when there is not actively, like, massive war and shit happening, he does the Hippy Dippy championship show. And when he does that, if you guys didn't get the reference, because he did a bit of a reference to it, he does this sort of, like, Vince McMahon WWE, like, lefty debate kind of meme, where it's like, I'm the Vince McMahon of, like, the lefty debate sphere. I'm holding the debate WWE belt championship, right? And he'll be ruthless about it when he's in WWE Vince McMahon mode. And so he was referencing that. Hippy Dippy is dead. It's not coming back. No! They could always come back. You guys don't know. The future could never. All right, listen. The internet is one of those things where things change very quickly. All right, internet time moves at like 10 times the speed of real life time.
I do like the smack though. I love it when children get hurt. Wait.
Good clip. This is a good clip. Didn't Dylan basically say never again? Things could change though, you know? I feel like something that I grew up on the internet, okay? Literally, by the age of 10, I stopped watching TV. All my content consumption was YouTube. And something that I noticed growing up online is, it was just a funny clip from Dylan's stream. It was cut out of context. Something that I've noticed is that things will seem very permanent and forever online, and then very quickly that changes. I feel like the perfect example of this is Smosh coming back. How many of you would have bet a month ago that Smosh would reunite and come back? Ever. I'm pretty sure most of you thought Smosh was gone forever. Something I think a lot of people are going, and things like this have happened before. Something I think a lot of people are going to realize is, you know, things on the internet aren't necessarily set in stone. I mean, they're forever. Like, what you post online is forever. I mean, I'm not saying that, but like, plans can change online. Times pass very quickly, and I've seen things that I never would have thought come back, and I don't know. Who knows? Maybe we see like a big wave of like the panel stream format become really popular again, and Dylan's like, no better time than any to bring back Hippy Dippy. It's not like he signed a contract to say it can never come back, you know. All it takes is him saying like, oh, holy shit, it would actually be smart to do that. My point is, never say never, okay? I'm an optimistic person. My philosophy has always been that if you aim high, you can only miss high, right? Like, you guys might hear a lot of my ideas and a lot of my goals and think they're really far-fetched, but if that's what I'm aiming for and that's where I'm striving for, if I fail, how high am I going to find myself when I fail? Pretty damn high. You know, in the scheme of things, if you aim high but you miss, you're going to hit pretty high still, you know? So that's the way I think of it, right? If you work your fucking ass off to achieve a dream that seems impossible, even if you fail to achieve that dream, you're probably going to end up in a position that's pretty damn good because you put in so much hard work to achieve this impossible dream. You know, you probably achieved a lot of much more possible goals in the meantime, and that's kind of the way that I think about it. In the meantime, though, I do have to pee. I have to pee pretty badly, so I'm going to go pee really fast, and then we're going to do another segment. I think I've got one more segment in me today, and it's about something that, wow. That's all I have to say about it is wow. I'll be back, chat. You guys love spamming that dick emote, don't you? Oh boy, you guys in my chat sure do love your dicks, don't ya? You little gays in chat sure do love penis. The conch. Alright, I can't believe I'm doing this. We're about to endure. We're about to endure. All right. I want to try to get a combo with you and Lucy Hayes. I'm not sure what about yet, though, if you're open to random combos in the near future. Lucy Hayes seems pretty based and has been in my community for a long time, so I see no reason not to do that. I do plan to do more frequent streams. I felt so fucking sick the last, like, half a week or so. And getting streams in has been a big pain in the ass. I think it's mostly long COVID. Like, ever since I had COVID, I've had, like, ups and downs of, like, periods of days where I'm, like, pretty goddamn sick, and then I'll have 1 or 2 days where it's like, okay, I'm back to normal. And then, like, I just wake up the next day, and it's, like, back to a fraction of how I felt when I had COVID. And it gets less bad and less frequent as time goes by, but I'm pretty certain it's just long COVID fucking with me. Having COVID damages your body and your immune system. Like it being in you, like, no matter how bad the symptoms are, even if you're an asymptomatic COVID haver, that virus is in your body doing damage, and that's damage that's going to take a while to be repaired, if ever to be repaired. So, my body's still, like, kind of fucked from having COVID. You know, it's just not fun. Anyway, let's get into the topic. Y'all know what to do when I say action, right? 3, 2, 1, action. Alright, everybody. I'm going to start this topic by talking about a story that seems, on the surface level, somewhat unrelated, but definitely has a connection, and you'll find out pretty quickly what I mean by what I'm doing here. So, how many of you remember in 2016 when Donald Trump was sued by a woman who claimed that Donald Trump had raped and sexually assaulted her when she was 13 years old? Hypers in chat if you're familiar with that. Something that I've noticed has gone much less talked about is what followed that. You see, nothing ever came out of that. Trump never got any justice sent his way for all of that, because that woman, and it was a very credible testimony, and you'll find out just how credible when I make the big reveal in a moment, she dropped the case. She dropped the case after receiving a bunch of death threats, and Trump supporters ran with it, saying that that meant that the case was false to begin with. Here's the thing, though. This all happened back in 2016. Didn't get a lot of attention, right? And because Donald Trump was the big figure in question, the fact that she was actually suing 2 people in that case as having raped her when she was 13 kind of flew under the radar. Do you know who the other person was she accused, along with Trump, of raping her when she was 13 years old? Jeffrey Epstein. For those that don't know, Jeffrey Epstein, big, powerful guy, very rich, very wealthy, houses all over the fucking world, right? Has a lot of connections with a ton of rich people. You see, rich people, not all rich people, but for some reason, most of the ones that get all of our attention tend to be demons. And they do some pretty depraved shit. Obviously, like the child sex abuse rings that like the billionaires love to frequent are pretty well known. It's basically a meme at this point. But there's stuff that's like even more new, right? Like, for example, hypers in chat. If you're a girl who does OnlyFans, got a few of those in my community. If that or any type of sex work online, if you've done that, chances are, at some point, you've been offered by a very rich person a all expenses paid flight and stay in Dubai. It's pretty common. A lot of the richest people in the world and a lot of new money moved to Dubai. The Andrew Tate types moved to Dubai for a variety of reasons, but a large part of it is its gauche, tackiness and flaunting of extreme wealth, but also the very draconian laws that restrict particularly women's rights. And because of this, there are a lot of very, very wealthy dudes who have like moved to or live in Dubai who find random attractive women online, usually who do OnlyFans or Instagram modeling, slide into their DMs with like verification of who they are and like showing off how much money and wealth they have, and then goad said woman into like flying out. And I mean, the stories that are like known to come out from women who've done this and gone through it are like, it tends to lead to shit involving animals, scat, incest, sometimes shit involving kids. It's really creepy, weird people doing this a lot of the time. And there's some real horror stories that have come from women in sex work or even just Instagram models who got a message from a really wealthy guy, flew out to Dubai, and either they ended up getting, lover boy method, like what Andrew Tate was doing, or they end up having a guy watch a tiger shit on her chest. That's not far off. That's not far off from the kind of shit that happens. Getting paid to have a billionaire, sit in the corner and jack off while a tiger shits on your chest is not that far out of the realm of possibility. Now, with that said, bro, I'm eating. Bro, I'm telling you the truth. That said, why am I talking about Donald Trump and Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell right now? Well, because Ghislaine Maxwell was this, I would say, pretty lady that Epstein would keep around to help, like, legit... All right, we're going to talk about something, okay? Our society is really good, typically, about recognizing that we need to protect our children from weirdos and creeps in public, right? Like, parents know that if there's a weird guy at the park just kind of hanging around who doesn't look like he's got any real good reason to be there, it's kind of a sus thing, right? But on the inverse, how many times have you seen a mom who, like, needs to do something that involves, like, her kid, like, not being with her for a second, and immediately goes and finds a woman, just some random stranger woman, to leave her kid with, because that's, like, ideal, or it's seen as, like, more safe. In our society, we view women as almost not impossible for them to be creeps, but I think we've been conditioned to, like, if you had to leave your kid with a total stranger, the pretty lady walking down the street is probably going to be a lot more trustworthy than the random guy walking down the street, right? And because of that, it is not uncommon, apparently, for male predators to utilize an adult female, like, lure or bait to lend legitimacy to who they are and make them seem less creepy. And that is what Ghislaine Maxwell was for Epstein. She acted as somebody who basically made him seem like less of a creepy, weirdo, pedo dude, right? And she helped in his grooming of these children that he was, sex trafficking. So why do I bring this all up? Well, it's because a YouTuber recently named Miranda Sings, her actual real name is Colleen Ballinger. Now, I mentioned this earlier on in the stream, but I grew up on YouTube. I'm 23 years old. I stopped watching TV and movies when I was 10, roughly, and that's when I started watching nothing but YouTube. Now, I was an annoying, just obnoxious little shit when I was 10 years old, 11 years old, 12 years old. And despite that, when 10, 11, 12-year-old me saw Miranda Sings pop up on YouTube during like the peak of her popularity, when she was like the one of the big ones, right? I was like, wow, this lady is really annoying, and never watched another one of her videos. She like, in my mind, Miranda Sings has been one of those people, like, I've just never liked her. I always thought she was annoying and cringe and weird, and just kind of like a terrible representation of like YouTube content. I've never liked her. Which is kind of why it's, oh yeah, by the way, she doesn't usually look like that, apparently. I literally just found out this is how she actually looks, which is just, you know, pretty surprising, because I always saw her as, like, the character she plays on her thing. Anyway, she's got a very young audience. She's got a very young audience. A lot of kids, a lot of young girls, notably. And, as mentioned before, a lot of parents feel much more disarmed when it comes to protecting their kids from predators, when it comes to their kids' safety around a woman. And I think it's safe to say a lot of parents would probably see this woman and think she looks like a safe person to leave their kid with, like at a show, at like some kind of like YouTuber event or something, right? She just doesn't look threatening, weird, creepy. I mean, her character was always pretty off-putting to me, but like, you know, this is what she actually looks like. Why does she look like Linda Cardellini? I don't know who that is. Regardless, though, despite the fact that she's not anywhere near the largest YouTuber anymore, and she's nowhere near as relevant as she was during her peak, for some reason she's still got, like, a lot of broad, like, outside of YouTube prospects. Like, she had a Netflix show, she was in, like, several cameos in movies and TV shows as, like, the YouTuber. Like, I guess it's because her content is so family-friendly and brand-friendly that YouTube is fine with presenting her as an example of, like, the top of the, you know, like, this is what we want to represent our platform as far as, like, grassroots creators go. Yeah, she was in Wreck-It Ralph, too. Very, like, not popular anymore insofar as the YouTube sphere, but, like, a representative of YouTubers as a whole. And if you're wondering what the fuck this has to do with Ghislaine Maxwell and Epstein and Trump, it's that, as it turns out, Miranda Sings has been exposed by numerous alleged victims of grooming on the part of, I believe it was her brother. It was her brother, right? It's Ghislaine Maxwell? Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm so sorry for pronouncing the woman who helped orchestrate a child sex fucking ring, like, her name wrong. I'm so sorry. Listen, she's Ghislaine as far as I care. Right, that said. You're probably wondering where the connection is here. Well, as it turns out, effectively, Miranda Sings was acting as a Ghislaine Maxwell for her brother's Jeffrey Epstein. She was basically disarming these young kids, getting them into, like, group chats and calls, and then engaging in really sussy conversation with them. That was confirmed as well. Like, screenshots and shit have leaked of all this. A lot of it is, like, probably... Some of it's not even safe for work that I literally couldn't show it. Oh, and her ex-husband, thank you. Weird conversations. Weird fucking conversations with underage fans. Very much underage fans. And then on top of that, funneling those kids and allowing them to be predated on and groomed by her brother and her ex-husband. Really fucked up shit. These, the people who've alleged this, you know, the victims, have come out and they've actually shown evidence. It's not like a massive document of evidence or anything like that, but it's like, that's pretty hard to argue with kind of evidence. So you would think, if she's going to respond, she would respond, and she's innocent. You know, let's assume she's innocent for a second, and she's going to respond. Wouldn't she provide at least some evidence of her innocence, right? If she was innocent, she would be able to provide something in her response. She does not. And yes, she has made a response. Now, I will admit, I've been spoiled on this. I went into Vosh's stream earlier today, and he was covering this, and I did see this, this apology video, if you could call it that. And, I've already cringed at it for the first time. This will not be a first-time watch-through of it. I'm sorry. I feel I legally have to inform you this will not be a blind watch of this apology. But oh boy, was it cringe. And the looks I was making, the faces I was making while watching it for the first time were probably quite funny. So I feel like watching it a second time, and you guys getting to see those faces is probably, you know, it's probably worth it. So, after being exposed as a, both a predator herself, arguably, as well as a enabler and ally to predators that were actively predating on her fans, that she was funneling in to be groomed, this is her response. Hypers in chat if you haven't seen this yet. White woman jump scare. Hypers in chat if you haven't seen this yet. Oh boy, we got some people in chat that haven't seen this. Oh. I saw about 20 seconds. Oh. Alright, I'm gonna ask if you haven't seen this yet. Even if you have. If you've seen it, you know, but if you haven't, then you don't know. Remove any sharp objects away from arm's reach before I start this video. Let us begin. That's right. That's fucking right. Yep. That's what this is gonna be.
Hey, it's been a while since you saw my face. I haven't been doing so great, so I took a little break. So a lot of people are saying some things.
This woman deadass pulls out a ukulele and starts singing her response. I'm going to preface this by saying at no point does she show screenshots or evidence to try to prove that she is actually being falsely accused. She pretty much just calls the people accusing her of grooming them malicious liars doing it for clout. So no evidence on her side of things. This is somebody who we have no reason to assume is innocent who is doing this, by the way. But keep that in mind throughout this entire video. Yeah, it feels like how Rebecca Sugar would like make an apology video for drawing like Ed and Eddie Yowie, which is real, by the way. That's a thing that happened, and for some reason people don't talk about. But yeah, this feels like how she'd respond to that.
Things about me that aren't quite true. Doesn't matter if it's true though, just as long as it's entertaining to you. Right? You guys having fun?
Okay, this is pretty quiet. I feel like I need to volume boost it. You guys need to hear this in its full clarity.
All aboard the toxic gossip train. You're chugging down the tracks of misinformation. The toxic gossip train. You got a one-way ticket to manipulation station. Toxic gossip train. Tie me to the tracks and harass me for my past. Cause rumors look like facts if you don't mind the gap.
Then provide some screenshots. Like, like, listen. Chat. If you've followed me for a while, you should know that at this point, I've been hit with some scandals. That I've been put in a position where I have to prove that I am in the right. And that I didn't do anything wrong. And I think you guys are pretty aware that I've done a pretty good job at this. It is not hard to, like, at least find a few screenshots to debunk Like find a contradiction, a lie that was told. One screenshot is all you would need, and people would have something to latch onto to have hope that maybe you're innocent in this and these aren't true. And you provide none of that. Instead, you throw yourself a pity party with a fucking ukulele song. It's actually at the point where if she actually is innocent, I almost want to say she deserves people believing these allegations are true because she's doing such a piss poor job of responding to these, let's say hypothetically, false allegations. It's like, holy fuck, you're doing such a bad job at responding to this that you honestly deserve to have people believe this about you, regardless of whether or not it's true. Okay, that's a little far, but like, I think you guys know what I mean. This is a horrible response. Yeah, they did do a joke about this on It's Always Sunny. There's nothing that would make me think nothing makes me think you're likely to be a pedophile more than writing a song about how you're not a pedophile.
Perhaps I won't survive in the crash, but hey, at least you're having fun. Hi everyone. I've been wanting to come online and talk to you about a few things.
Zan Sex Cult song, when?
My team has strongly advised me
Get on
to
it.
not say what I want to say.
Get on it, Sweet Myths.
I recently realized that they never said that I couldn't sing what I want to say. So here I am, and today I only want to talk about the facts. So
Let's see some evidence.
I hope that you'll be willing to listen. Here we go. Many years ago, I used to message my fans, but not in a creepy way like a lot of you are trying to suggest. It was more of a loser kind of way, where I was just trying to be besties with everybody. It's kind of like when you go to like a family gathering.
I'm going to say, as a smaller content creator who's grown very slowly in the grand scheme of things, even when I had like 20,000 subs, I was like, you got to be pretty careful with how you engage with people who are fans of you, right? Like, hell, even when the sex cult drama happened, one of the things that I was accused of that was false, that I put a lot of work into finding direct evidence to prove is the case, is that none of those people were fans of my content. Because the idea was that I'd like used my power as a content creator to make women like me sexually or something. And very bizarre. That was basically like Thought Slime's allegations were different from the person who he was bouncing off of to try to like shit on me's allegations. So he just like Thought Slime just made completely new things up. But the original thing was that I had essentially like used my position as a large YouTuber to make a fan of mine believe that if I remember correctly, it was that I would offer them financial stability and let them live in a mansion with me or something. Very like insane shit. But I was able to provide evidence this wasn't the case. Like, examples such as them saying, I've never watched any of your streams before. And I've never watched any of your videos before, in text messages. Which is, pretty hard evidence that somebody you're talking to isn't a fan of your content, is them saying, I've never watched any of your stuff before, multiple times. Yeah, it's pretty hard evidence. But... And I've had to prove my innocence and shit like that before. This is not how you do it. This is not what someone does if they're innocent in all of this, okay? This is somebody who is absolutely in the wrong and feels upset that they have been called out and that they have been proven to be, like, that their game they've been running for like 10 years now has all fallen apart. She's sorry she got caught.
And there's a weird aunt there, keeps coming up to you and going like, hey girl, what's the tea? And you're like, ugh. That was me, but in group chats with my fans. It was weird. I've been sharing my life online for over...
Like, when it came to the sex cult thing, the fact that all the women in the Discord were the ones taking the screenshots and compiling the evidence for you was kind of the evidence in and of itself. Well, yeah, it was literally one person in there who had an argument with literally everyone else in there, and, like, insulted them all and then left over a disagreement over Star Wars. So nobody else there was on that person's side by any means, yeah.
15 years. I've poured my heart out to you, and because of that I feel like I'm talking to my friends, but in the beginning of my career, I didn't really understand that maybe there should be some boundaries there. There were times in the DMs when I would overshare details of my...
You mean, did she not literally, like, send lingerie photos to, like, a 12-year-old boy? Like, was that not a thing that she did? That seems a little bit more than oversharing. No, she sent the lingerie. Oh, I'm sorry. She sent her used lingerie to a 12-year-old boy. I'm so sorry. I'm very sorry. Lefty misinfo. Yeah, I think that might be a little bit more than oversharing. Not used, newly purchased, but still. Okay. Regardless, though, like, I think that might be a bit more than oversharing.
My life, which was really weird of me. I haven't done that for years, you see, because I changed my behavior and I took accountability. But that's not very interesting, is it? So let's go on the toxic gossip train.
By the way, the victims of the grooming are the ones who've come out about this, and that's why it's being talked about. So she's just calling the victims toxic.
The locomotive's fueled with hateful accusations.
This is the white woman audacity, okay? Only white women have this level of audacity to respond like this after being, like, outed as a pedo. Only white women could have this much audacity to respond like this after being proven as, like, a weirdo groomer.
The toxic gossip train steamroll over someone's reputation. Toxic gossip.
It is a little bit of a banger, though. I mean, pretty much any ukulele, like, the ukulele is the easiest instrument to make, like, a decent-sounding bop on, so it's not really that much of a compliment, but, like, I mean, you know, it's a boppy beat. It's a boppy beat.
Train, hop on board, but close your eyes, otherwise you'll realize that the train is made of lies, and that person you despise maybe didn't deserve to die, but hey, at least you're having fun.
I don't think the victims were having any fun, personally. No, I don't think they had fun getting groomed, or having to come out about having been groomed. I'm gonna guess that it's not very fun for them personally.
In all seriousness, I do think it's really important to hold people accountable for their mistakes. You know, we should hope that everyone can learn from their mistakes and grow and change.
Wait, do we have a Miranda Sings defender in YouTube chat? Who's defending Miranda Sings? I was actually hoping we'd get one tonight, because something that you'll find is pretty common on the left is, like, the unironic women can do no wrong shit. Like, you will run into lefties who will completely be okay with women being abusive, pedophiles, anything like that. That kind of shit is not common, but, like, you're gonna find it on the left if you're gonna find it anywhere. You're being toxic? Stop. No, I want to know who's defending the pedophile in my YouTube chat. What do you mean? She has been proven guilty? Who is doing the defending? Alright. She has to prove the evidence is false? Yeah, she needs to provide counter evidence. The onus is on her to do that.
Their behavior and be a better person.
The people who made these allegations provided evidence. She has not provided any.
It's something that I've always tried to do when I make mistakes, and it's something that I will continue to try to do. What? Oh, you don't care? Oh, okay. I thought you wanted me to take accountability.
No, I care about the evidence. I care about whether or not you're a danger to children with your platform. And if you are, then you definitely shouldn't have your platform, and you should probably be in jail. Like, yeah. Yeah. No, I care about what the evidence says. I don't care about your pity party.
That's not the point of your mob mentality, is it? No. Your goal is to ruin the life of the person you despise while you dramatize your lies and monetize their demise. Yeah. I feel like I can already...
So, like, no, the victims have not monetized any of this. The only people who you could say have monetized this are YouTubers like me covering it, and yeah, cope and seethe. You're going to fall, and you're not going to be able to groom or hurt kids anymore. And the people who exposed you and spread the fact that you're a predator far and wide are going to benefit from it. Cope. That's the YouTube game. Yeah, this is heavily narcissistic, by the way. She is extremely narcissistic.
Here are the comments on this video. She's gaslighting, manipulating. Oh, she's a narcissist and a rat. I would never make a mistake.
You know, the allegation can't be true if you say that we're going to say it before we say it. Foolproof. If you say you're going to call me narcissistic for being narcissistic, then calling you narcissistic all of a sudden holds absolutely no water and can't be true. You've absolutely destroyed that argument. Amazing.
Like that. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that all of you are perfect. So
I stand corrected.
Criticize me. Bring out the daggers made from your perfect.
Yes. Hey, we're pretty pissed off that you like groomed some kids. Oh yeah, and you're so perfect. You think we're just human? You think I'm just a human being. I'm only human after all. Like, what the fuck? Dog.
Past and stabbed me repeatedly in my bony little back. I'm sure you're disappointed in my shitty little song. I know you wanted me to say that I was 100% in the wrong. Well, I'm sorry. I'm not gonna take that route of admitting to lies and rumors that you made up for clout.
Demon Mama did full coverage of this, and it got worse as more evidence came out about her, and H3H3 even had an interview with one of the victims. They talk about everything she and her husband next did. No, yeah, like, there's so much shit about this, and apparently Demon Mama's coverage is, like, super in-depth. If you just want to know, like, what's the deal, is she innocent or not, what's everyone talking about, this video is good for that, but if you're, like, invested and you want the deep dive, you want to go to Demon Mama's stream, okay? Demon Mama put a video out on it, I think, already. If not, there should be one out soon. From what I've heard, Demon Mama's deep dive on this, which she is very good at deep dives, is very good. So if you want, like, the comprehensive coverage and not the Cliff Notes version, go to Demon Mama's stream. That's, you know, you can get both, but, like, you'll get the real deep, long-form shit from that.
Hey everybody, I found someone new to harass. She did some things that I do not like in her past. So everybody gather round, cause we're about to attack.
Yeah, the thing we don't like is the grooming kids, by the way.
But not based on facts. Oh.
Yeah, well, show some evidence. It's not based on facts. They provided evidence. You're acting like a conservative right now, saying in the face of evidence and facts and reality, actually, I have facts and reality on my side, and then refusing to look or acknowledge the evidence. Because if you don't talk about it, then it doesn't exist, I guess. Because that's how narcissism... Like, unironically, though, narcissists do think that way. I wonder if she thinks if she doesn't acknowledge it, then it doesn't exist. Sort of subconsciously. Like, if she gives it no attention and doesn't let it occupy any of her brain space, then it doesn't exist. And people won't see it or think about it. And she can make the narrative what she sees it as, you know? Like, she can change the whole world's perspective to how she sees it. Speaking of which, her brother tried to convince one of the victims that they weren't really trans. More reasons to hate these people.
No, your loaded lethal weapons, your fingers on the keys. You don't need any armor when you can hide behind a screen. So shoot me down quick with a click and bam. My reputation's deceased.
How's her social blade? Fuck. God, this is the shit that we're... Oh, God. And the first thing that comes up the first thing that comes up when you look up her social blade, and this is the tragedy about the YouTuber in question having such a young audience, they haven't been exposed to any of what's come out, probably. She's still getting views and isn't losing subs. Her career is not going to suffer from this at all, because her audience are children. Children whose parents probably, like, just aren't going to hear about this or find out about it. I don't think this is going to stop it. Like, unless YouTube takes action and bans her and takes away her platform, I genuinely don't think this being outed can stop her. Because her audience is so young. Her audience demographic is so fucking young. This has been out for days, by the way. She should have lost hundreds of thousands of subs by now. Like, the demographic that's subbed to her, though, that watches her videos, aren't going to see these videos. They aren't going to hear about this. Many of them might not even be old enough or mature enough to understand the concept of pedophilia. She dropped this video a day ago now. It has 3.4 million views, 55,000 likes. And it just doesn't seem like her audience is responding negatively to it. Like, if YouTube will not do anything about this. If you think YouTube gives a fuck about protecting children on their platform, you are sorely mistaken. YouTube is not going to do a damn thing about this. This is going to continue to be a content creator who's big, popular, and absolutely able to have access to more kids. As a matter of fact, the top video is her with a little boy. And according to the evidence that's come out, she has kind of a thing for little boys. So it's a little spine-tingling to see that fucking thumbnail on her social blade where she's lost no subs. No subs because of this. Because her demographic is so fucking young that they aren't even getting exposed to this shit. Yeah, it's literally a baby channel. Like, we're talking, like, kids so young they can't string together a sentence that's, like, cohesive yet, you know? Their speech development centers haven't reached full capacity. Hell, mine haven't even reached full capacity yet. But, like, no, they're like, it is a very much a young demographic she makes her content for, and it is terrifying that they are not going to be exposed to this knowledge until it's too late. Will Matt Walsh cover this? Fuck no. No, Matt Walsh and this girl are probably gonna, like, end up, like, organizing something. They're probably gonna be the bestest of friends. Oh, that is grim. The fact she's lost not, like... At the very least, she's lost less than 100,000 subs out of over 10 million subs from this on her main channel. Fucking crazy.
I also wanted to take a minute to talk about that girl Miranda sings. You know the one. Yeah, her. She's PG-13. It says that on my website, and it's always been that way.
That's not how it works. Saying your content's PG-13 and you make PG-13 content doesn't change the fact that your fans were kids, they were underage, and you groomed them. You know what you've probably noticed already, is that she's not acknowledging the actual allegations. When she references the allegations, she's super vague about it. Because she's trying to make it out like the allegations are something they're not. She hopes that people just take her side of things and don't look into what the allegations are, and ideally don't even find out how bad they truly are. Because why would she say that in response to allegations that she, in private, in, like, private group chats, was grooming underage kids along with evidence provided to prove this? It makes no sense unless you're somebody who she thinks is watching this with no prior knowledge in what's going on other than there is drama. Let me see what, Miranda Sings has to say about it.
And that's why you won't find my videos on the YouTube Kids app. Anyway, I didn't realize it was my responsibility.
Absolutely destroyed the argument. Her videos aren't on YouTube Kids. I guess that means it was okay for her to groom those children. She got us, guys. It's over. She fucking got us. That is just bulletproof logic. It's fucking over, dude. It's fucking over. Anti-pedophiles destroyed. That, like, it's Jover.
To decide what was appropriate for every kid to see. I've always relied on parents to decide if they're comfortable.
Yeah, I guess the PG-13 thing magically... Wait, does this imply that if they were... like... Hold on a minute. Does this imply it would have been okay if they were 13 instead of 12? Wait a minute, what does the PG... 13 is still underage. It's... Yeah, wait, hold on. What?
Comfortable with their families watching my YouTube videos or coming to my live shows. Now, have I made some jokes in poor taste? Yes. Have I made lots of dumb mistakes? Yes. Am I sad that
you made a
some
real
fans
bad
feel
mistake or two.
betrayed? Yes. But was my intention to manipulate? No.
Oh, her intentions were good, though, guys. She had good intentions. Wow. Good intentions, guys. Guys, trust her. She had good intentions.
It doesn't really matter what my intention was, because it seems as though everyone's already decided on that.
Bruh.
Let me tell you, it's not very fun.
How do you say this when the quote, "The road to hell is paved with good intentions" exists? How do you say that as a defense when that quote exists?
To have millions of people all over the world call you the most vile, horrendous, disgusting, life-ruining words that a person can be called, in my opinion. It doesn't matter that these things aren't true.
Any
everyone
evidence?
just believes that you are the type of person who manipulates and abuses children.
You're a pretty lady on the internet. Any evidence you could provide, people that want to believe you're innocent would latch onto. Anything you could provide if it existed, you could provide, and people that want you to be innocent would defend you. You're a massive YouTuber with over like 10 million subs, and you're a pretty white lady. Every single aspect of this is slanted in her favor. And yet she's still throwing herself this huge of a pity party.
So I just wanted to say that the only thing I've ever groomed is my 2 Persian cats. I'm not a groomer. I'm just a loser who didn't understand I shouldn't respond to fans, and I'm not a predator, even though a lot of you think so, because 5 years ago I made a fart joke.
Really leaning on the hope that nobody goes out and looks at the allegations, huh? Really hoping on that. I guess she put her hopes in the right place, because she's not even lost 100,000 subs.
So, even though I know this video won't change anyone's mind about me, I still felt it was important to come on here and defend myself a little and take accountability. And I also wanted to say that to anyone out there who has ever supported me in any capacity, I really, really appreciate you. Thank you. For what it's worth,
Oh, feel bad for me.
I never had any bad intentions,
Shut the fuck up.
but I do feel like shit.
Fuck you.
The toxic gossip train, chugging down the tracks of misinformation. Toxic gossip train, you got a one-way ticket to manipulation station. Toxic gossip train. You tied me to the tracks and harassed me for my past rumors.
You know, YouTube TOS existing is a shame right now. There are many things I would say if there wasn't a YouTube TOS. Listen, you guys, if you're wondering why I haven't said things that many of you are probably thinking, it's because, you know, I imagine YouTube has a gun to the back of my head, and if they pull that trigger, then my entire channel gets deleted, and I can't buy groceries or pay rent anymore. So, yeah. TOS is a failed project in situations like this.
Look like facts when you don't mind the gaps. I won't survive in the crash, but hey, I hope you had some fun.
I like how she's it looks like she's trying to hold in a smile because she knows she's bullshitting. Like, maybe that's just how she looks, but, like, she kind of looks like she's trying to keep herself from, like, doing a, oh, I'm bullshitting lying smile, you know?
Actually, you know,
Did she just fake?
I feel like maybe
Wait, did she just do a fake, like, oh, I was gonna wrap up the video, but now I'm gonna, like, impromptu go on longer? That is fake as fuck. Fake. That was not real. Oh my god, how... This is evil. This is narcissism. This is evil. It really is. She knows exactly what she's doing, and this is a very intentionally planned and formulated video.
I should let you guys know something. It seems like
I should add a little thought bubble that forms next to my camera that just says redacted. That would be good.
let me try to help. Sometimes people make a mistake, and it doesn't make them a horrible person. Whoa. Sometimes people can make.
I tell you what. If it let's say you go to prison for like a decade. Let's say a decade to 15 years. And you come out, you've gotten therapy, and you are not a risk to children anymore. Then you'll be okay in my book, I suppose. But you know, I believe in reformative justice. I don't believe that like we should, you know, kill every criminal. But like it is hard not to feel seething hatred for this woman as she shows her very blatant disregard for responsibility of what she's done.
Make a mistake and they're still a good person. Crazy, I know. Sometimes people can make a mistake and you don't have to take that mistake. Oh no. And
Exactly.
twist it up
Heavy
and
Gretel.
grind it and add some lies to it and pulverize it and stab it with knives and ruin a life and oh no. Sometimes people can make a mistake. It does.
It's so evil to try to take advantage of people's desire to hope for the best in others and try to assume stupidity before malice. For people who absolutely act with malice to take advantage of that in order to get away with the evil shit they do. That's what she's taking advantage of, people wanting to attribute things to stupidity over malice, and it infuriates me.
Doesn't mean you gotta send them hate. Oh no. Sometimes people.
She's trying to rely to an extent on misogyny, too. I think she's trying to play the I'm just a dumb chick card. To a degree. She called herself a dumb loser a couple times in this. I feel like she's trying to do the I'm just a silly little girl meme. It feels like, yeah. Yeah.
Make a mistake and you can kindly let them know and help them to grow. Sometimes
Just a little guy.
people make mistakes simply because they made a mistake.
She's got a little wacky.
Mistake doesn't make them a terrible human.
Your Honor, in my client's defense, she says she, and I quote, has that dog in her.
Just makes them a human. But what do I know? Fuck me, right?
Yep. Fuck you. I literally ended the segment on that. I just clicked the stop I hit the stop recording button right at the end of me saying, yep, fuck you. That's literally the end of the segment. Just me saying, yep, fuck you. I hope Cherry doesn't edit that out. I know it'll get the video demonetized. I don't even want that video monetized in the first place because the subject matter. Like, I don't even like, it's not like something I'm concerned about. So like, don't even bother editing that out, Cherry. Just keep that in there. There's no better way to end that segment. Oh god, this hag again. Yeah, no, we already finished the segment. It's all good. Well, that just kind of made me feel a little bit sickly. Oh, a little bit of a palate cleanser. You know, I just realized when I was a kid, they had these commercials for these little, like, cereal straws. Like, they were literally straws made out of cereal and, like, some kind of, like, Oreo cream in the center. And you would get a glass of milk and then drink the milk through the cereal straw. And then you would eat the cereal straw because it's fully edible. And I always wanted them, but they were, like, according to my mom, overpriced and unhealthy. But now I'm an adult and I could just buy those now. Like, I've never had them before, but I could just, like, buy those now because I'm like an adult and I could go to the grocery store and like spend my own money to buy those. I don't know why, but that just hit me out of nowhere. I tried to talk to my brother about how he can't watch her anymore and he demanded I spin him in a desk chair later, I guess. Well, I mean, if it gets him to stop watching her, then, I mean, good. Remember once they made Eggo waffles that were filled with jelly, they slapped? Really? Holy shit. I need to go wash my soul off with rubbing alcohol again. Those straws do sound tasty and delightful, though. Yeah, I've always wanted to have those, but I just never got to. But, like, one of the best things about being an adult is as slowly you start to get used to being an adult, and you realize, hold on a second. That thing I always wanted to try as a kid, that my parents would never buy me, I could just, like, buy it. Like literally, I could just go to the grocery store and buy it. And no one can tell me I can't. Like, there's no rules. I make the rules now. If I want to go to McDonald's, I can go to McDonald's if I have McDonald's money. If I have McDollars. If I feel like going to McDonald's, I've got McDollars, and no one can tell me there's McDonald's at home. It's a very amazing revelation. Yeah. My mom would always say, do you have McDollars? If I asked for McDonald's. Yo, Xander Hall really said, what is this? Oh, kitty. I like cats. I love the Twitter account that's just cats going goblin mode. Here's what we'll wrap up with. Our final palate cleanser before I read donos. Cats going goblin mode. Okay, this is all different animals going goblin mode here. Probably mostly cats. Get out of his house. That's his house. You just opened his door. A RuneScape clip? Oh, okay. Oh, my nose is so itchy right now. What the fuck? I think I've watched Artemy have this exact same interaction with Pigeon.
Ready, boy?
Sheepdogs are crazy, dude. Like, I don't think you guys realize how badass sheepdogs are. Like, that's like the equivalent of like not getting trampled by bulls. Delicious. Dude, I love monkeys. I'm pretty sure those are, chimpanzees, right? Or orangutans. Okay, so my understanding is a chimpanzee will rip your jaw off your face. But orangutans are like the nicest ever. If you ever want to fall into a pit with like a hominid, you want it to be an orangutan. They're like the nicest, most chill. Like, I'm pretty sure you could go into the orangutan pit at the zoo with a few joints, light them up, and hand them around, and the chimps will start smoking that shit with you, or the orangutans will start smoking that shit with you, and they'll get high as fuck, and then they'll probably start fucking each other in front of you, which will be pretty traumatizing, but you know that's just how they do. Yeah, they're like the most chill. Like if you're worried about being ripped in half by a creature much larger than you, the orangutan will not be the one that does it. Or a gorilla would be the second option. Yeah, gorillas are actually temperamentally surprisingly chill. Like a male silverback gorilla who's in like fight mode, they might even charge at you, but if you handle the situation right, they won't even attack you. You just have to not show fear. And they apparently won't attack, which, you know, is probably a lot harder than it looks. You know, like, not showing fear when there's this, like, barreling 1,000-pound monster coming at you when Winston is, like, charging up his ult at you to not show any fear. Gotta be pretty difficult. God, cats are so stupid, but I love them. They're like, cats are really stupid and really smart at the same time. I would watch Luna open up my bedroom door like a velociraptor, but then I'd also watch her do just the stupidest fucking shit. Just the dumbest fucking shit. But then she'd open a door like a velociraptor. It's like, what are you? What is your intelligence? Luna's battle IQ was insane, though. That's a good cat. That's a really good cat. I wanted so badly to see Luna snuggling my little Yorkie at some point, and it never happened. They eventually got pretty friendly with each other and would, like, hang out near each other a fair amount. But, like, considering the cat was 3 times the size of the dog was terrified. Like, from the dog's perspective, it was like having a goddamn Bengal tiger in the house. And, you know, I'd seen Luna take down rodents larger than that dog, so I was a little worried. I was a little worried about my little teacup Yorkie, but I wanted to see them snuggle and do something like this at some point, but it never happened. Is Luna dead? No, Luna's not dead. Luna, is with her, like, proper owner now, my ex. But, my dog, though, my Yorkie, she passed away very recently. Literally the same week Daniil passed away. It was a sad week. Very, very sad week. Daniil was really cute. When I met Daniil, he literally crawled up into my lap. Like, I sat on the floor and I like, you know, crossed my legs and I just, like, sat on the floor just giving Daniil little, like, 2-finger head scratches. And then he, like, crawled up into my lap. It was so cute. He was so tiny. He was so fucking tiny. Like, you would just pet him with, like, 2 little fingers because he's so little. Take a dab for him. There's not much left. I don't feel comfortable doing a subpar dab for Daniil, but I'll do one regardless. Yeah, Daniil had a genetic congenital condition. There was nothing that could have been done about it. There was nothing that could have been done. A lot of designer cats just, there's no way you can really predict it. Well, there are ways, but it's always a gamble. Devon Rexes, Sphinx cats, any type of cat that's like special like that, high chance of birth defects that can severely limit the animal's lifespan. It's really sad. But yeah, it's just one of the risks. It's one of the risks, but like there's nothing wrong with getting the pet, especially if you give them a very happy and comfortable life, right? And Daniil had a very happy and comfortable life, so you know, it's sad, but it's also like happy that it went that way, right? Because Daniil had a really happy life. Anyway, moving on from the sad topics. Beta Leafy, thank you for the $5. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Very kind of you. Said, today I found out the fog out of my window isn't fog, it's smoke. Yeah, no, you're in Detroit, I'm guessing? It certainly looks like Detroit. Yeah. I'm sorry you're dealing with the miasma. You should probably not be outside. My first piece of advice to you is get the fuck inside. Yeah, go inside. Stop being outside. Fucking Canada. Okay, as much as I do love giving shit to Canada, Canada's got it worse. The fires are actually in Canada, burning away swaths of woodland, and like the smoke is blanketing like shit ton of Canada too. Because we're not Canadian, we're not hearing about it, but like they're dealing with it even worse in Canada, as it should. No, but seriously, stay safe out there, my Canadian fans. I'm always joking when I make jokes about you. Orange Snow Fox, thank you for the tier 1 gift sub to Somniostatic. Very kind of you. Thank you for the $5. Said, Death to White Name. Tizan, thanks for the advice from the start of the segment. Advice worth $5. Oh, well, thank you. I really appreciate it. I assume it was about aiming high so you miss high. All right, everybody. It is time for me to wrap up stream for today. I know it was a bit shorter, but I don't feel very good, so cope. I'm just kidding. I love you all. I'm sorry. I will not be going live tomorrow, but I will be going live the day after tomorrow, assuming I'm not literally puking my guts out. As a matter of fact, perfect timing, actually. Dylan Burns is live. I don't know if he was live when we had our convo or not, but he's live right now, so I'm going to go ahead and raid Dylan Burns. So yeah, go send some love. Go send some love, because I love you all very much. Have a great day. I love y'all, and I'll see you all next time. Pee-pee, poo-poo.